I was so close. I was so close to starting on time. I was so close to starting on time. Alright. So I'm a little bit worried about this stream because I don't have Ethernet this time. OP001. That is correct. I was really, really close to starting on time. I was really, really close. Hey, Strife, what's up? Been a while since I've seen you. 16 minutes is not close as Milo. Milo, I was 1 minute off. See the time it was scheduled for 6:15 EST. Neon Kahana says, Morja's beard. I'm in the in-between phase. In between. Gabe C says, why so early? Exactly. Everyone should try and be more like Gabe C. and praise me for being early. Behanort says, is Luffy coming into his own as king the same as Luffy coming into his own as chosen one? Or is it a different theme for future arc like Blackbeard? I think that they're going to be somewhat connected. A lot of that's going to play out over the course of the Kaido fight. But it does seem like it's, a lot of those ideas are coming into fruition around the same time. So we're seeing Luffy getting the silhouettes behind him, so how high will your ceiling go? At the same time as Luffy developing Advanced Conqueror's Haki. At the same time as Joy Boy, the Joy Boy talks coming up. Kaido talking about could Luffy be the next Joy Boy, etc. Kaz WSX says, is Mr. Morge of Indian descent? Yes. Sharon says, did you see Spider-Man? No Spider-Man spoilers in the chat. No Spider-Man spoilers in the chat. I'm going to see it tomorrow, I believe. No spoilers in the chat. Anybody who spoils it gets, timed out or banned or whatever. JJ47 says, do you think Germa's going to find Pedro? That is actually a great question. A great question. I pray to God, no. I pray to God, no. I pray to Goda. I pray to Goda, no. Look, if there's I think that would kind of test people's limits. I don't even want to talk about. What's sad is that we even have to talk about it. Like, I believe that, no, Pedro is dead. I definitely believe Pedro is dead. But ever since Pound, it's so sad because it's like, now I have to actually entertain the possibility that Pedro is not dead. It's crazy. It's like, how did we get to this point? Stripe says, YouTube has spoiled me on Spider-Man, unfortunately. I don't care that much about Spider-Man spoilers just because... so here's the thing. So the Spider-Man movie, I'm not too into the MCU at the moment in general. I think I haven't been since their main storyline concluded with the Infinity Stones, etc., Thanos, blah, blah, blah. I'm not too interested in the MCU. I never really was, but especially after, Endgame, Infinity War, I'm really not. But this is different because, it's not really... I'm not even looking at it as an MCU movie. I'm just excited to see what conceptually they do with... This is one of the coolest cinematic crossovers I think that there's ever been. And it's weird because it's just Spider-Man crossing over with Spider-Man, but it's cool to me because it was not intended... what's different about this is that these are franchises, essentially, that were never intended to cross over. So the MCU, right, like the way the MCU, Avengers, all of that stuff, the way they cross over, the intent is there from the start for these storylines to cross over. This is the first time that I can recall that there's like a really, really big sort of unplanned crossover between, superhero universes essentially merging. And the style and tone of the different Spider-Man movies it's so different. I'm just really, really interested to see how they can make them all blend and mesh together. And like, I have a high level of nostalgia for the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. Yamil Diaz says, who's more beautiful, King Arbel or Boa Hancock? They're, they fall into different categories, right? Boa Hancock by default. Ceci Rapalini says, if Pedro lives, the raid will fail. Look, if Pedro lives, there's a lot more problems that are going on than whether the raid is going to fail or not. If Pedro lives, I just don't even know. I don't even know what I'd say. I think I'll have to... If we get a cover story where Pedro is shown to be alive, I think I will take the week off. You will not get a chapter review or anything like that content-wise for me for that week, because I just have to kind of internally process that and just be like, I don't really know. I don't feel like I would just have to not address it and skip over it and let that blow over and then just move on to the next thing. Milo says it's so good. That's the thing. I'm excited about it too because it's supposedly really, really good. A lot of people are saying it's the best MCU movie, whatever. Yeah, if it's a good movie, I'm definitely down to see it. Like, just the novelty of what it is alone has me wanting to really see it. But the fact that it's also supposedly a really, really good movie, that makes me want to see it as well, you know? Ningyo Collector says, Brago subs drooling over King. Jeno Esteves says, what's wrong with your mic, Morge? So right now I'm at my parents' house. I'm back for Christmas. So I think just view this as the default. Anytime you see this sort of background in the streams, just assume that I'm, you know where I'm at, basically. I'm back in my hometown. Yeah, I'm back here for the holidays, so I don't have my mic. I didn't bring it. I do have my nice webcam. I don't have it attached right now. Should probably have done that. Gabe C says, Morge, if you don't spend at least 10 plus minutes discussing why Whitebeard Forgiving Sword is one of the best character moments of all time in New Marineford vid, I'm throwing my Morge plush in the trash. There's not 10 minutes devoted to that. I had to cut lots of things just for time, otherwise it's like a 2-hour video or something like that. Instead, I'm trying to get it to like 1 hour or less. There's less time spent on that, but that moment does come up. It does come up in some shape or form. There's so many good things in Marineford that I kind of had to focus down and narrow down what I wanted to talk about. Abe Singh says, Morge in the kitchen? No, I'm in the basement. I know it looks like I'm in the kitchen of the basement, you know what I mean? So you are right, technically, that it is a kitchen. Rubishi says, No Way Home has a decent story as its foundation, but most of what it makes it great is not its story, but the nostalgia and whatnot. Yeah, and I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't care. I'll happily take the nostalgia. Morge says, Morge says, Morge, will posters be able in Europe? I assume you mean available. Oh, your name's not Morge, it's Modrazek. Maybe I'm just imposed my name onto you. Modrazek says, Morge, will posters be available in Europe? Guys, posters, if you want posters, I strongly suggest everyone check them out. They're really, really nice. The artist is, again, Aiden Capristo. The link to the posters is in the description below. It's morgestore.com. You can hit it, take a look. There's only one thing to see in the Morge store. It is the poster, and it is a really, really nice poster. It is a really, really nice poster. It should be available for shipping to Europe. And it doesn't, I should warn you guys, it will not arrive in time for Christmas. So if you're trying to get it for a Christmas gift, at this point in time, it's not going to arrive for Christmas. You had to have gotten it basically in the initial sort of push. Princess Taco is here. What up, my fellow mods in chat? Alexandro Casagrande says Marineford is only like 28 chapters. Is Marineford really only 28 chapters? Let me think. So it started at 150. No, sorry, not 150. 550, right? Chapter 550, it roughly begins. I think 552 is the chapter that Whitebeard kind of launches the war with the tidal waves. And then it concludes 581, I believe, right? 581 or 580. One of those two chapters is called End of the War. So, yeah, Marineford is it's a clean 30 chapters, basically. Yes, please keep watch for Spider-Man spoilers, and reviews and stuff are fine. If people are like, I like Spider-Man for this reason, that reason, that's totally fine. I'm totally fine with getting that input. Everyone, please like the stream. Like the stream. Yeah, just like the stream. Bannock says, me when no Marineford analysis. What a fucking liar, dude. What a fucking Weasley little liar, dude. Still lying to his audience. Are you channeling Hasanabi? Are you channeling Hassan? I never thought I'd get some Hassan references in my chat. Hey, Yanel says, did you see the Oda's Jump Festa? He kind of insinuated that Wano would end next year, I think. No, he didn't. That's not true. I read Oda's Jump Festa. Well, okay, it's so I could see why people would say that, but one, Oda, the two things that Oda said, so we can get this out of the way. He said, I can't believe the Wano arc hasn't ended yet. So that's one thing he said. And then he said, I can't wait to draw the final scene of Wano. Those are the two things he said. So, to be clear, when Oda says things like, I can't believe this hasn't happened yet, or I can't believe that hasn't happened yet, it is usually Oda joking or trolling around. Usually 95% of the time. Oda's not confused that the Wano arc hasn't ended yet. Like, even if you believe this is the final battle, there's still, like, a good minimum 15, 20, 30 chapter. Like, it's not like Oda's like, oh, I can't believe, like, we just missed it or whatever. It was supposed to end this, this year, but it didn't. So Oda's trolling on that, so I don't view that as, like, a real thing. That's not to say that, like, that means that the raid's going to fail. Obviously not. I'm just saying that, like, he says things like that in general in the past. And then the next thing, which is, I can't wait to draw the final scene of Wano. Oda's literally said, I can't wait to draw the final scene of One Piece. He often says things like, I'm excited to draw this scene or that scene, and that's years away. So those two statements don't really mean much to me. I don't think it indicates that much either way. Now, if Oda just went ahead and said, Wano arc will come to its conclusion next year, then I think that carries some more weight, unless Oda's hard trying to mislead. But that's a little different than just him saying, like, oh, I'm surprising the Wano arc hasn't ended yet, and, like, I can't wait to draw the ending of it. That's two different things. Sean Easton, wow, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate it. Merry Christmas, my good man. That's the spirit. What are my thoughts on the totally not Mark Toei thing? Sean Easton, you know what? You've been a wildly unhelpful mod for a long time, but in reality, you've been a very helpful mod for a long time. So I very much appreciate this in Christmas, I guess the Christmas spirit. Cheers to you. What are my thoughts on the totally not Mark Toei thing? It is terrifying. So it's tricky because there's not, I kind of like, how do you say this? I kind of like accepted the sort of powerlessness that you feel with when YouTube just does things to cater to certain corporations because, did the whole dislike video thing, zero sort of effect or anything like that. Obviously, it didn't really pick up, whatever. And obviously much, much bigger YouTubers than I did, lots of things around the dislike situation. So I kind of already learned this lesson that it's impossible to fight back against YouTube. So I watched this basically happen. I talked with like lots of other YouTubers. We have our group chat and stuff like that. We just discussed it quite a bit. A lot of One Piece YouTubers are pretty worried and concerned about this because it's just different in that Totally Not Mark is a very large YouTuber. Not large in the grand scheme of things, but large in the sense that he's big enough that if YouTube deleted those videos, it doesn't go unnoticed, as we saw, right? His videos getting deleted, he's a large enough channel size that it created a lot of waves to the point that much, much bigger YouTubers are bringing this to attention. You have PewDiePie talking about it, Moist Critical, like everybody. And it has no effect. So if the dislike thing didn't already show it, this just does further in that it literally does not matter. It does not matter what happens to creators, and it's creators of every size at this point, right? Creators of every size. And YouTube can just do whatever they want, and they're always going to side with whatever the corporation that's backing them is going to go with. So it's very, very disappointing to see. I know I talked with Brago about it. He just took like a break from making videos for a while just out of fear. I probably would have too if I had anime clips in my videos. I don't have manga panels. So it's just, very scary, very disheartening. There's literally nothing to be done about it, and that's the worst part. There's genuinely nothing to be done about it. David Zoller says, Arcane is the best thing I've seen this year, and I'd love to hear your take on it. Yeah, everybody's been talking so much about Arcane. I think I have to watch it at this point. I don't have to watch it, but I just don't feel like watching it, I guess. I don't feel like getting into... I guess it's not that many episodes. I don't know how many episodes it is, but literally everybody I know has said amazing things about it. I think I've genuinely not seen one negative thing about Arcane. Not even like, you even see stuff like this, like, yeah, it was really, really good, a bit overrated, a bit overhyped, but like still really, really good. I've never even seen that. I've only seen people coming away from it being like, this was amazing. So I think I'll give it a try at some point. It's just, I have so many other things that I want to try. I've got a lot of movies I want to catch up on. Even some anime and manga that I want to catch up on. I'm just like, how to move Arcane to the top of that list. I'm kind of in the zone of like, let me just let this Arcane hype blow over. And then, I'll give it several months, and then we'll see if people are still talking about it. Hopefully it just dies down and people just stop talking about it or something like that, so I feel less pressure to watch it. That's what I did with Tiger King, by the way, and that worked out. Although I know that's totally different. You know who talks about Tiger King nowadays? Nobody. Nobody gives a shit about Tiger King at this point. It was all the rage towards the start of COVID. I was like, I'm not watching a fucking documentary about people that imprison tigers. I was just like, I'm not doing that. So I skipped it. And for like 2 weeks, I had nothing in common with my friends because they just wanted to talk about Tiger King. Nothing in common with anyone socially because everyone just wanted to talk about Tiger King. But then I waited it out, and then everybody forgot about it. Did the same thing with Chernobyl. So I just prefer to wait these things out, see how they... So I'm on a shaky desk right now. See how they pan out over time, and then make my decision from there. Invincible, the hype for Invincible lasted long enough that eventually I was forced to cave and just watch it, because there's just too many memes. The memes to Invincible are still going today. People still talk about Invincible, so I was forced to watch it. Let me see how things go with Arcane. I believe that Arcane's, amazing stuff, but I just don't feel like watching it. You know what I mean? Isaiah Data says, the red line is red because of the blood shed by the Lunarian race. By the time Whitebeard mentions them, they have long been eradicated. If you mean, like, literally, it is a red line because of so much bloodshed, then I would say that seems a little unrealistic, even by One Piece's standards. The amount of blood you would need for that is actually insane. It is greater than any single race's genocide could provide. But if you're saying that, like, symbolically it's red, the red line is symbolically red for multiple reasons. As I've said before in, like, my theory on... Not my theory, it's a long-running theory on the end of One Piece. The red line being red makes sense if you believe that One Piece is at the center of the world, underneath Marijoa. Essentially, like, the destruction of the red line, as the red line fits, like, the idea of a red pirate's X being destroyed on Earth. That creates the all blue, the one unifying sea, the One Piece, whatever. But having added symbolism, because Oda likes to have, get as much out of symbolism as he can throughout the story. Strife says, Oda constantly makes comments like, I can't believe this and that has been going on for so long. Like, it just... Unless he says something, like, really, really concrete, I kind of just wave it away. The 5 years thing, we've said that multiple times. We said that 2 years ago, we said that, like, this year, we'll probably say that again next year, whatever. But yeah, on the red line, if it's symbolically also that so much blood has been shed on the red line over the course of the genocide that took place on the red line, I think that'd be another great reason behind it. I'm seeing some Merry Christmases. I appreciate that. Merry Christmas to you all, too. I feel like I should have started the stream saying that. Merry Christmas and like the stream. That's a good combo. Power Ranger says, is Shanks the freest pirate in One Piece so far? No. Gold Roger was the freest pirate in One Piece, by definition, right? Pirate King, freest man in the seas. But I actually go a little more in-depth in Marineford video, in the upcoming Marineford video, as to what freedom means in One Piece, as a lot of that is actually defined in Marineford. So depending on your definition of freedom, but also it matters a lot to what the series seems to be defining freedom as, I think there's an argument that Shanks might be the freest pirate in the world right now. It depends. It depends on, I guess, your definition of the word freedom, but, at least according to what the Marineford arc seems to suggest freedom is, then maybe that is also the case. I think a lot of it comes down to how Oda spins certain definitions of freedom. Van Hort says, the main message of One Piece is the world is a dystopia. It needs to be destroyed in order for a better world to be reborn. Now, is this Oda's actual worldview, or is it just an accident? Sounds kind of anarchist, to be honest. So when I say that, when that's the main message of One Piece, that is sort of a cycle that, I mean, if you've seen my videos, you know that I talk about this at length in the video on the Dawn of One Piece and the philosophy of One Piece, I think, a little bit, and then the Blackbeard video in particular, I talk quite a bit about it. Dawn of One Piece and Blackbeard video, I talk a lot about that cycle in particular, right? So, that's a cycle that Oda pushes quite a bit throughout One Piece. I don't know if that's a cycle that he's necessarily pushing for the real world, but rather it's a cycle that fits the narrative of One Piece really, really, really well. Like, it fits the narrative of One Piece, in a story context. It's a really powerful cycle to keep showing over and over again, because that is essentially what Luffy and the Straw Hats do. They bring destruction and rebirth to every sort of oppressive regime that they encounter. So in that sense, I don't know if that's like a broader message that he's trying to talk about regarding the nature of the world, like the actual world, and pushing some sort of... It's not anarchy, right? Because the idea is that it's destruction and then rebuilding, right? Destruction and then rebirth. Anarchy is a state where there is no, actual ruling government, right? So Oda's never pushing for the idea to, like, destroy everything, leave it in chaos, no government. In fact, that's actually, if you look into my Blackbeard video, that seems to be more so a Blackbeard-centered thematic idea, which is Blackbeard is kind of an agent of chaos to a degree, and he brings sort of just general destruction and chaos wherever he kind of fits into things. Whereas with Luffy, it's usually destruction followed by rebirth to a better regime. So I don't know if Oda necessarily is trying to push that as like the real world, we need to tear everything down and then rebuild it. But it fits the function that his main characters have throughout the story, and it makes for some really powerful storytelling arcs throughout One Piece that he can keep going back to. Dom says, you have disappointed the people once again with No Film Z, with the precedent set by Koopy Koop versus Morge. Mod status shall be given until it's watched. Dom, this is so dirty. Is Dom a mod? Let me see if Dom's a mod. That's dirty. You can't call upon Koopy Koop to... Dom, you know how many mods there are right now? There's so many mods. I wonder if there's a limit to how many mods I can have. Some people have been randomly getting unmodded. I wonder if it's because I have so many mods that it's automatically kicking some mods off of mod status. Dom, your argument is going to be considered pending. You know what, Dom, you can be a mod. You've been an OG in the streams for so long. You can be a mod regardless. But it's not because you're right about the Film Z thing. I'll do the Film Z thing eventually. Just don't worry. I'll get to the Film Z thing eventually. I promise. Give it 3 episodes. It's 9 episodes. How long are these episodes? There's a huge difference between like 9 20-minute episodes versus 9 40-minute episodes. How long are Arcane episodes? Huge as. Haha, that's funny. The emotional scenes were meh. Okay, I don't know what that means then, because everybody else says it's really good. Virgil Hawkins says, Tiger King isn't a story, though. Yeah, well, I'm just using it as an example. Tiger was a moment in time, says Daquan. Yeah, I try to skip over these moments in time. Because they're just that. They're just moments. You need what stays, Stuff like One Piece. Stuff that stays forever. Red LX4 says, have the Onigashima fights felt super underwhelming to you? I feel like Oda's ability to pace out fights in a satisfying way is long gone. This is a conversation I really don't want to have on this stream. People will... I will say this, and people are saying Arcane is so clear of Invincible. I liked Invincible quite a bit. I didn't think 40 minutes, 35 minutes, 40 minutes. How can it be 40 minutes and 35 minutes? Someone's lying to me. Shonen Shadow says 50 minutes. Most people are saying 40 minutes. Dom says, oh no, I was joking. There you go, Dom. 40-minute episodes. Okay, so then when you say watch 3 episodes of it, right, you're basically telling me to watch a 2-hour movie. And when you're telling me to watch 9 episodes of it, you're telling me to watch a trilogy of 2-hour movies. You're essentially telling me to watch, like, a full movie trilogy. That is essentially, you're basically saying, watch this full movie trilogy. Morge, watch this full movie trilogy, it's really good. I'll think about it. Were the fights underwhelming? Okay, the Toby Roppo fights, I think we can all agree, yeah. Okay, let me give the good and the bad. Okay, I think let's sandwich it. Compliment sandwich it. I thought Robin got her best fight in the series. I think the rest of the Straw Hats, the rest of the Toby Roppo fights were not real Straw Hat fights practically. Again, I have a full video on One Piece fight analysis. Red X says I don't gotta watch Arcane. I do trust Red X's opinion. Martin Castro says, is the Marineford analysis on the full arc, Fish Riders or post-war, or just the Marineford section? It's on the full saga. I know different people use different terms. I think the popular term is saga. So it is mainly the Marineford arc itself emphasized. Heavy emphasis, on the Marineford arc itself. But you can't talk about that without talking about the full context of the saga. So it's pretty broad. It's pretty broad. It actually talks about that, and it goes further back into the story, because a lot of what matters in Marineford is built on previous things in the story. So I hope you guys enjoy it. I'm a little worried about it because I've had to cut a lot of things because it just takes up too much time, and I'm juggling so many different things at the moment. So it's not as comprehensive as I would have liked. And I spend a good section of it talking about something that I worry that people may not care that much for. I shouldn't talk about it like that. You guys will get it. You guys will hopefully like it. Now, besides that, what was I talking about? Toby Roppo fights. Yeah, Toby Roppo fights. I think we can agree we didn't like the Toby Roppo fights that much, right? I think most people did not like the Toby Roppo fights that much. Aslan is still on. Zoro's most definitely cutting Onigashima in half. Toby Roppo fight's a thing, no. I think the Robin fight was a standout fight. To me, I kind of view the Robin fight as the best fight out of all of the Onigashima fights because it surpassed expectations for me by a lot, right? It blew every other Robin fight in the series out of the water, all like 2 or 3 of them. Or maybe 2 if, honestly, just one extended Robin fight. I guess 2 if you count Robin versus her Fishman Island fight, if you really want to stretch or reach. Dawson Williams says, "Hey Morge, what do you think you'll do when One Piece ends, video-wise or otherwise?" It depends. It depends. I have to see. It depends how attached I am to YouTube. I may try to expand the channel to focus on other things. Maybe I'll switch over just exclusively to Movie Morge to focus on that. But hopefully some other things have come together by that point that I think I would just do YouTube as a hobby again. Right now I do One Piece quite a bit because I'm kind of like invested in being, I guess, a One Piece YouTuber. And like this is the only series. One Piece is literally the only series that I would ever spend this much time talking about. It's the only series that I'm genuinely like really, really love and feel so much passion for. There's no other series that like, even if like, I could never force myself to be like a Boruto YouTuber or a My Hero YouTuber. Not because I don't like I enjoy My Hero. At least the last that I caught up to it. I enjoy it, but I couldn't force myself to do it. Even if you went to like my second or third favorite series, like, I could never make myself be like a Chainsaw Man YouTuber. If Berserk was still going, I couldn't make myself be like a Berserk YouTuber. I could do these things in bits. Like, I would be happy to mix in some Chainsaw Man content with One Piece, or, My Hero content even with not My Hero probably, but like JoJo's content with One Piece. I'd be fine doing stuff like that, but I could never devote myself to a single series ever like that again. That's why I like the movie channel again, just because it's you can focus on different topics. One Piece is literally the only series that I like love to the point that I would just do that and just do that for a long period of time. I said Boruto YouTuber as an example of just because it's popular and running doesn't mean that like I would focus on it. Greymouse Ozzy says another manga will have surfaced. It's not about the popularity of the manga though. Like, put it this way, like even if One Piece was still running and Naruto was still running and both were at their peak popularity, I wouldn't do Naruto content just because I'm not interested in those other series as much. You know what I mean? And I think it's really hard to imagine for me like another series that I would love so much that I could just do that series, simply because like One Piece, like it's been with me for so long and I have such a high attachment to it. You know what I mean? Anyway, Miss Super Chat from Power Rangers meant living pirates lol. Is he the freest out of the living pirates? That makes more sense. I'll say yeah. I think freest means a few different things. I think you have an argument for I think any of the Yonko have an argument for being freest. Freest kind of means, let's say, if we put it in the context of can get away with the most shit, it's probably Shanks. I don't think Kaido could walk into... Shanks is probably the freest. I don't think Kaido could walk into Marijoa and just talk to the Gorosei and not have a whole world war break out. I don't think he could do that. I think if Kaido showed up to attempt to stop the Marineford War, his wishes would not be respected. Not because Kaido isn't strong, but because he's an asshole. And everyone would just be like, fuck it, we're going to kill Kaido too while we're at it. Let's get him. Back to the main question. I'm kind of sticking around on this question just because it's a broader question to talk about. So, the fights. Toby Roppo fights. Okay, if we're going forward with the assumption that... You guys know my opinion, right? My opinion is Zone Awakenings are coming, etc. Hopefully you've seen my video on it. It's a recent video. I personally believe it's a good video. Watch the video if you haven't, but I have a video on Zone Awakenings why I believe that at least a lot of the Tobiropo, Calamities, etc. are not done yet, okay? If we throw my stuff out the window, because you guys don't want to hear about that, let's talk about the fights as is, and let's just assume that this is the end, okay? If we say this is the end, then I'd say the fights were underwhelming as a whole, because for most of the Straw Hats, either they didn't get a fight, or they got, like, kind of a crappy rushed fight. There's no way to argue that Jinbei, Frankie, etc. Like, you can watch my One Piece fights analysis video. I kind of break out, like, how Oda does such a good job telling a story through fights. If you look at Jinbei, Frankie, you know, Nami, obviously, etc. Like, they're not good fights. They're not up to Oda's usual standard in terms of the time and effort and, like, storytelling that he puts into a fight. They're kind of rushed, they're kind of sudden in terms of how they ended, all right? Robin, I think, was a great fight. I think Robin was actually a really great fight. I think it was long awaited for her. I generally think that Robin, outside of like a really long, drawn out like end game final battle for her, I think it's tricky because Robin is one of the hardest characters to write fights for, simply because her abilities make it so that generally either she beats the opponent right away or she can't beat them for some reason, like Logia, they're too physically strong, things like that, right? I think it's hard enough to try and write a Robin fight, so to write a good matchup for her and then write it as a good storytelling moment for her, I think those two things were really good. So I like the Robin fight quite a bit. Zoro and Sanji is where it gets tricky, and it's a little sad because I think we should look at all of the Straw Hat fights holistically to determine, like, were these fights satisfying? Because for the majority of it, no, it was not as good as Enies Lobby. But people are just interested in Zoro and Sanji, unfortunately. So if we just want to talk about Zoro and Sanji, I think that if you put together all of the panels, like, that's a weird way to say, at the very least, the two most recent Zoro chapters, two most recent Sanji chapters, right? Combine those two together, I think they make for pretty good fights. I think that they both have good character sections, and they both have, essentially a good character section to start off. Zoro with Enma stuff, Sanji with raid suit stuff, and I think the choreography, the action section, the more recent chapters we got were good for both of them. Sanji's, I understand some people felt was lacking because it felt a little too easy at the end. Just because it was purely off a queen going off after Osome for no real reason, or kind of like an arbitrary sudden reason. He's in the middle of a fight, he's just like, I'm going to do this, and then Sanji kind of gets him, and there's not really like much of a back and forth fight between the two before Sanji wins, at least during that final sequence of blows. So I get that for Sanji. I think Zoro is a more satisfying sort of series of final attacks back and forth. So I would say that a lot of Oda's cross-cutting, his splitting, did not do it any favors right there for the way that the Zoro and Sanji battle is perceived by a lot of people. But I think if you put the chapters together, I think it makes for some pretty satisfying fights. I think if you combine the Zoro King chapters together, I personally put it above Zoro versus Kaku. I still personally put it below Zoro versus Mr. One for me. And I actually think that Sanji, the character moment for Sanji, I said initially, and I put out that video saying I thought that this is like arguably Sanji's best character moment in the series. I didn't feel like the follow-up to that character moment was necessarily like hard delivered on the moment itself, the character scene itself. So it's tricky with Sanji. Sanji doesn't have like really amazing fights in general, so if I said that I thought that this was maybe Sanji's best fight, I could see it. So that's one side of the argument, all right? That's me talking about the fights in a vacuum if you want to compare Zoro and Sanji's fights to previous fights in the series. However, and this is what I talk about, and I talked about it a little bit in my chapter review that other people don't seem to get, that's not the standard by which you would go by whether the fights were underwhelming, okay? To me, it's not about, like, people are combining the chapters and being like, look, it's about as long as Zoro versus Kaku, Zoro versus Jabura, stuff like that. That's fine, but that's irrelevant. Because it's not about relative to their previous fights. Wano is 400 chapters of build-up. 400 chapters of build-up. 400 chapters with Sanji not getting any serious fights. Zoro getting essentially joke fights, like really easy fights like Monet and Pika, like not real fights essentially, right? So 400 chapters of building up to this singular conflict of the Straw Hat Pirates versus the Yonko Pirates. So by that standard, right, the simple rule is the more dramatic setup you're doing, the goal is to have that. The reason you are doing longer dramatic setup, the pure reason to do longer dramatic setup, build more and more, is to make for a more powerful payoff. That's the simple reason. That's the basic standard of storytelling. That's the reason you do longer dramatic setup. It's the same reason that you would expect Alabasta's fights, right, to be more significant, longer, more climactic than Arlong Park fights. More dramatic, more climactic than Orange Town fights. Why? Because Oda has put more time into building up a longer dramatic setup, building up to this Baroque Works conflict. The dramatic setup, the dramatic buildup is greater for the purpose of creating a greater payoff, right? That's the standard. So that, I don't know. I think this is one of those things where people are saying, oh, the fights were underwhelming, and then they're being hit with, well, look at the chapter count, look at the panel count. It's technically greater than those previous fights. That's missing the issue, right? Because people are trying to say it's underwhelming, but then they're not able to put up a good argument for it. Here's the argument. It's not about like, oh, well, their fights have always been like 2 chapters, 2 to 3 chapters. It's, was this 400 chapters of buildup to the Straw Hats finally taking on a Yonko crew? 400 chapters of buildup. Did that feel like the payoff to that was worth the 400 chapters of buildup? Because to put it into context, Enies Lobby was 400 chapters into the series. And on the way to Enies Lobby, we had plenty of, the arc itself was only like 100 chapters, right? It's not like the whole 400 first chapters of One Piece were like build up on build up on build up to Enies Lobby, no Straw Hats getting any significant fights. It's not like Zoro had to wait 400 chapters into the series before he gets his first series fight, you know what I mean? So think about it like that. Before Enies Lobby, we had like Alabasta, we had Arlong Park, we had Skypiea, there's plenty of things. But then from the time skip to Wano, it's a 400 chapter drought. It's a 400 chapter drought of the Straw Hats essentially being the sidelines, with the idea being that it's build up to a final climactic battle with the Yonko. So what we expect out of that final climactic battle with the Yonko is exponentially greater than anything in the series before. So by those standards, so you understand I'm putting into 2 different things, right? I'm saying that in a vacuum, if I read purely the Zoro fight and purely, let's say, the Mr. One fight, I would actually view them as comparable fights. But in context, which is, how am I evaluating the full story of One Piece, especially, Wano at the end of this 400 chapters of buildup, I would view those fights as underwhelming if these are their final battles. Does that make sense? And that's one of the reasons I praise Robin's battle quite a bit, because Robin's battle, to me, it felt like it delivered in the sense that, yes, this was greater than anything Robin has had as a fight scene in the past before. So it delivered on expectations in that Robin's fight was, it felt like, yes, this is what we would finally get when Robin is finally against a serious opponent, against a Yonko. We get a powerful character sequence for her. We get her busting out really powerful ability. It's a longer fight for her than ever before, etc. It's relative to the standard of what the storytelling was up till now. Does that make sense? So that's my view on it. Let me see how many things we have to catch up on now. Hold on. L'Assassin Silencio says, if King shows his regeneration power next chapter. No, I think that if Oda's doing any sort of turnaround or whatever, it would be going through the full beats, essentially, of, getting to Luffy versus Kaido, etc. Getting to Luffy versus Kaido, I think once we get a Kaido flashback, if there's going to be a turnaround, it would be after the turnaround. That turnaround would be after a Kaido flashback. Xander Bringa says, what do you think is Usopp's big Wano moment? I mean, my hope is that, the fact that Usopp has not had a big Wano moment so far indicates that there's more story to be told, because Oda generally will almost always have Usopp have a significant scene in an arc. Usopp is the character that he's Oda's favorite character to go back to for significant character moments. So, Usopp's big Wano moment, I mean, I said a long time ago I thought Usopp might be taken hostage. So, I would love to see that come into play. Phantom Greyfire says, Miss Super Chat from 8 Gates Production says, $2. Did your folks want you to become a doctor? No, my family was never like that. They really didn't care if I did STEM or not. They did want me to become a lawyer, but that was because I personally had interest in that. You know what I mean? I personally had interest in that. Yeah. So it was kind of like, what do I think I'm good at, and what do I think I wanted to do? And then they pushed me towards doing that. But they never forced me into STEM. They did want me to go to law school, but I was trying to do my own business thing at that point, small business stuff, and that was kind of working out enough that I didn't have to. They did push me towards law school just because it's safer, but I said no to that because I believe that things would work out. And then the YouTube stuff is a totally different thing, because that still makes no sense to them, because they're just why do people care so much about this series? What do you do? doesn't make any sense to them, but they don't really mind it either way. Miguel Gonzalez says, do a poll and if the fights were disappointing. I'm not going to do that just because I don't like turning... I'm trying to avoid turning the streams into just being like... Not like you know, negativity. There's no need to do that. Like, I voiced my opinions, but I tried to basically explain, like, I still believe that if you put the Zoro and Sanji fights together, right, like, if you stack those chapters together, I think you can still get a really satisfying fight out of that. It's just that I understand why people feel that it's underwhelming because it's, again, it's not relative to their previous fights. It's relative to the amount of buildup that came to leading up to these fights, right? It's relative to the amount of buildup. What's the payoff fitting relative to how much buildup that we had? That's my opinion. But I'm not going to do a poll or something like that. That seems like it'll just turn the stream into something it doesn't need to be. I think that there's no, like, if you enjoyed those fights, I think you have a good argument for, like, why those fights were good. Like, again, I think Sanji's moment was really, really good. Zoro's chapter if everybody remembers, the chapter where Zoro got Advanced Conqueror's Haki with Enma, that was a hype chapter. That was a really, really good chapter. I would argue it was better than chapter 1035. But I definitely enjoyed that chapter. Martin Castro says, how much stock do you put in the power scaling of the story? I think Oda has been incredibly consistent with the tiers of power, but with Katakuri versus King and other debates at an all-time high, where do you stand personally? My simple take is I think that Oda is actually good at power scaling. I think he's good at putting things into sort of tiers, like you said. Like, I think he actually is relatively consistent. I think the simple fact that, like, if you say this character is, like, commander level, right, or in the tier of commanders, I like the fact that that feels broad enough that it's not, like, absolute, like, oh, that means that this character will beat that character, but rather it's a broad enough tier that you could be like, yeah, I could see them being in there, and then you can imagine then you have your own levels of interpretation to, like, okay, do I think, like, King is, like, at the top of commander tier, you know what I mean, like, Yonko commander tier, like, or do I think, like, there's a gap between Marco, Katakuri, and then King or whatever, like, but you get, when you say, like, a general, like, broad tiers, I think Oda is very consistent with that, and you understand that, like, you know, Admirals and Yonkos are above these guys, right? I think that Oda's very consistent with that sort of thing. I think he leaves certain things open enough to interpretation that it keeps things interesting, in my opinion. I do think it's weird that the community tries to downplay the importance of power scaling, because I literally don't get it, because, like, if you ever think anything in One Piece is hype ever, hype by definition almost always is a result of power scaling. It's almost always a result of understanding that, like, oh, this character became stronger or is showing something of a higher level than I previously believed. It's just that most people don't think of power scaling in terms of that nitty-gritty. But the simple idea of hype, why is the fact that we're fighting Kaido more exciting than the fact that we're fighting Caesar? That's fucking power scaling. Why is the fact that we're fighting Kaido more exciting than the fact that we're fighting Doflamingo? It's because of power scaling. Why is the fact that we're fighting Kaido more exciting than fighting Katakuri? It's because of power scaling. It's just, it fucking matters so much to the enjoyment of the average person's, you know, One Piece reading experience. Like, the power scaling matters so much. It's actually insane. Like, anytime you think something is hype, or, you know, it gets you excited at the prospect of a greater sense of threat or a greater sense of stakes, it's literally because of power scaling. It's just because a lot of people don't, like, actively put a lot of time into, like, ranking and stuff like that. They assume that, like, I'm not a power scaler. It's like, bitch, if you understand that Kaido is stronger than Doflamingo, you're a fucking power scaler. If you understand that, like, Kaido is stronger than Katakuri, you're a fucking power scaler. If you're excited at the fact that Zoro and Sanji are fighting Yonko commanders because you know that they're stronger than, say, the Tobi Roppo, or that they're stronger than, say, Virgo or Pika and stuff like that, you're a power scaler, you stupid dumbass. Like, it's like people think that power scaling is like some sort of toxic, poisonous word. It's like, no, that's fucking integral to an action-based manga where the goal is literally to climb to the top of a ladder of the strongest pirates in the world. It's actually insane that people seem to think that, like, I don't care about power scaling. It's like a sort of badge that you should wear as pride. It's like, okay, so you think what, like, you think Luffy should have beaten Aokiji back at Long Ring Longland or some shit? Like, no, that scene is exciting because power scaling exists, because you know that Aokiji is a threat far greater than the rest of the Straw Hats right now. Therefore, that's what makes that scene exciting. So these things do matter, and I think that's why Oda puts a great deal of time into making sure certain things are consistent. That's why Oda would never write a scene, like a manga where, like, let's say, I don't know, Brook could walk up and just like defeat Kaido right now. That doesn't make for an exciting manga. That's why Oda actually does put time into thinking like, you know, who should be matched up with who to a reasonable degree. You know what I mean? I think it's just because like certain things become tropes because of like Dragon Ball or something like that. Like, you know, we can't be associated with like Dragon Ball people, so we can't like be obsessed with power scaling stuff. And like I like the fact that One Piece power scaling, it's not about like specific numbers, like, you know, it's broader interpretations. I think like having a tier system that we kind of do, you know, like we again, like I'll use Yonko commanders as a general tier. I think that's like an enjoyable system where it's a little more, there's more variance, there's more arguments that you can come out of it, like more debate. But at the same time, you generally understand that like, yeah, these calamities are stronger than Tobiropo. That's exciting. Omgaidi Big says, whatever king is, dragon is from the same stock. I've seen the king dragon tattoo stuff. It's interesting. Same with the king dragon wiper. I don't think I would love the idea of Luffy being a Lunarian like some people are saying because he would just have like Lunarian descent. I think I just don't, it's kind of direction that we're heading down, which I personally don't like. I'm not going to say good or bad. It's like a personal thing. I personally don't like the notion that like, okay, so we're going to slowly find out that Luffy's like maybe Willa D, maybe like, you know, it's little things one after another. So first of all, Luffy is a D, which is significant. Then we're finding out, you know, son of dragon, most wanted pirate, or most wanted man in the world, greatest criminal in the world. Then slowly finding out like this Joy Boy stuff, Nika stuff, maybe that's Luffy, whatever. Then on top of that, Lunarian, this race of gods. I think it becomes a little mixed up in my opinion. I don't personally like that. I would rather not that. Biaslow says, hey Morge, how can Oda make a potential second fight against the Beast Pirates satisfying considering they already beat them once? I think the simple fact, in my opinion, that most people, let's leave the Calamity fights alone. I think most people were really disappointed with the Tobiropo fights. And if you look at the Tobiropo fights, Oda really did not write those fights the way he traditionally writes One Piece fights. Again, I'll keep pointing you to my One Piece fights analysis video, but I think I did do a good breakdown of like why lots of One Piece fights are so good because Oda writes a really compelling story within those fights. Oda did not bother to do that with the Tobiropo, except for Robin. So because he did not bother to do that with the Tobiropo, I think that, you know, just having another fight, like that is the simple fact that so many people are complaining that like, I didn't find the fight, like people are saying like, I thought the fights were rushed, I thought they were underwhelming or whatever, means that I think most people, if done in a proper way, right, if the twist or whatever is executed well, if the Beast Pirates suddenly become like a lot more intimidating or whatever, and if Oda kind of goes above and beyond in writing the next batch of fights, then I think a lot of people would actually be very satisfied because it's kind of exactly what a lot of people want right now, which is more out of the Beast Pirates. So I don't think Oda can really go wrong there too much as long as he's got a good vision for like what their actual battles would be or like their final second rounds would be, and make those more dramatic. Which I don't think is hard to do. I don't think it's hard to make those second round fights more dramatic. I wouldn't even be surprised if like some of the matchups are mixed up a little bit to make things a little different. Cigar Verk says, I guess King and Queen are truly done. Both has a symbolic and climactic. Cigar is ignoring what I just said. But Tobiropo are a different story. This also opens the door to Strats versus Kaido. I still believe in Strats versus Kaido, although we did just see Sanji just passing out. I would love to see Sanji passing out be a follow-up to the Germa change that he believed that he was undergoing, right? Which turned out it seemed to be a red herring. But I would love to see if we get Sanji waking up and he actually has had a change personality-wise, he's acting different, the Germa things have taken effect. And again, Strats versus Kaido I think has been strongly set up. Even if the raid doesn't fail, I maintain that I think Strats versus Kaido seems like a really, really, really well set up idea by Oda. Just strong thriller bark parallels, etc. Reddit boys hate power scaling, says just Achiko. It makes no sense to hate, like, it's just, if you ever think anything in the series is hype, it has to, by definition, come from power scaling. I think there's some rare exceptions where you can think something is hype that's not power scaling related, but that's just the way it is. So it's just funny that, like, people can get excited about certain things and then be like, oh, but I don't power scale. It's like, then you literally don't understand the source of the emotions that you're feeling right now. Gabe C says, fights have never been important to me in One Piece, and I think most people would agree that character moments are more memorable than any fight. I 100% agree. I mean, I think fights are important in One Piece, but One Piece is that rare series, like rare shonen, where most of the series' best moments that you can rattle off, they're not battles, right? They're not fights. You know, they might have some action related stuff, like let's say a Kainu killing Ace. That's technically the result of a fight, but it's a death, right? Whitebeard's dying speech, nothing happened. I want to live, help me. Luffy punching a celestial dragon. Again, that's like a violence related thing, but it's a character moment. It's not like a full battle. Whereas with most other series that I can think of right now, and of course all of the backstories. Whereas most other series that I would think of right now, I would think of like most other shonen at the very least. Their best moments tend to be, within a battle or whatever. Like, I love Rock Lee versus Gaara in Naruto, and that's probably one of my favorite Naruto moments. I love Naruto versus Gaara, Rock Lee versus Gaara, Naruto versus Neji. I think that was my favorite fight in the series, maybe, except for Gaara. Maybe Rock Lee versus Gaara. I love Naruto versus Pain, not in the anime, but in the manga. But at the end of the day, those are all largely fights, and I think that is the case for most shonen. One Piece is amazing because the fights, they don't have to be that. But at the same time, I also don't think that for the Strats we've gotten too many great character moments in Onigashima or Wano in general, or like character storylines much in general. Sanji, I thought that was a great exception, so I thought that Sanji had a really good character moment. I would have loved for something more to have come out of that. It didn't quite as much, but yeah, I think that's just one of One Piece's bigger strengths compared to other shonen, basically. But then at the end of the day, like if you're in Onigashima and like the fights aren't quite hitting, and I don't think that they've had great character moments in general, then it's kind of like the things that make one like, then it's like two areas which I think are not quite as strong. Dom says, who's your favorite Demon Slayer character and have you watched the anime? Reverse those questions. I've not watched the anime, therefore I do not have a favorite Demon Slayer character. But I'll probably give it a try, maybe this break or something. I got some time to watch some stuff. C. Miller says, people who read Sanji and Zoro's fights first time in Volume 102 will enjoy them a lot more than weekly. Zoro vs. King, best fight in Wano, ? Excluding Roof Piece. Yeah, it's just tricky. I think that, I think you can make an argument for either Sanji or Zoro's fights being the best in Wano. I think, like, it's tricky because, like, their fights were better than Robin's fight. I think relative to what I wanted for Robin, Robin's was the only one that really exceeded my expectations. Sanji's fight had better character moments than Zoro's fight, but I think Zoro's fight had better fighting than Sanji's fight, if that makes sense. So it's tricky, because Sanji's fight, I don't know how to evaluate it, because, like, again, I think it had arguably Sanji's best character moment in the series. It's just it didn't really go anywhere, so I don't know if Oda has a follow-up to that. And then the fight itself, it was cool in terms of finding out what Queen's abilities were, and cool in terms of finding out what Sanji's new abilities were. I think Zoro versus King, I just enjoyed the battle, the battle sequence more than Sanji versus Queen. So, I could see an argument for Zoro versus King being the best fight in Wano. I could definitely see an argument. Maybe I'd even have that for myself as the best fight in Wano so far. I guess it's hard to say, like, Robin versus Black Maria was the one that exceeded my expectations, so I have, like, a fonder memory of that fight. But Zoro versus King is maybe my favorite fight. I don't know if that makes any sense. Ninerbot follows up with Zoro fight just emphasized how lame Sanji's fight was. Okay. Queen was getting whooped by every character in Wano. Didn't feel like a great win for Sanji. I'm going to leave that for the chat to discuss, basically. I think it had good stuff for Sanji's character. I think it was a good show of Sanji's abilities. I would agree that Queen at no point ever felt like a huge threat, because maybe Queen should have been established more as a huge threat earlier or something like that. Queen clearly had a very strong arsenal of abilities. Like, that's undeniable, right? Yeah, like having all of Germa's abilities, plus the dinosaur abilities, plus his own personal augmentations. Queen had, like, a wild, plus, like, poison stuff. I guess that falls under Reiju's abilities. Yeah, Queen had a crazy arsenal of abilities. It just never felt like a threat. There's, like, a difference between being told that he has all this stuff and then feeling like he's a really, really difficult opponent to overcome. And, like, I could get into, like, the nitty-gritty of some arguments I've seen people make. Like, I've seen some people say that, like, look, here's a panel of Sanji saying he's having a tough time against Queen. But that's not really how it works. You kind of just, you feel it, right? Like, you if we'd gotten a little more time of Sanji getting a beat down from Queen, I think that would have been more effective in like just Queen being drawn even in a little different light or something like that. Like I remember during Sanji versus Jaibura, there's like a whole like a sequence of events where Sanji's just getting overpowered hit after hit he can't keep up. It's not that long, but there is a spiraling sort of a downward spiral for Sanji that basically culminates in him basically fighting back with Diablo Jambe and basically like upgrading. But I think that Sanji versus Queen, Sanji did struggle in that last chapter. That is true. So it depends. Jay Wall says, and for a series where characters don't die, all we have is matchups. Yeah, man, I'm gonna see if we can let's switch the subject. Let me see what the next. Somebody else want to not be mean to I think this is the problem. I think I got us on a certain train of me saying certain things about the chapter, or not the chapter, the fights. Let's talk about something positive, because it's Christmas. Like the raid failing. Yeah, it's gonna fail. Abdi Omar says Sanji faster than anyone. Yeah, I think it was like if you want like a cool flex fight for Sanji, Sanji, like the stuff he showed off was pretty, insane. Grimstar One says Lucky Roo greater than Queen. It's so hilarious to me to think that like Lucky Roo is actually really strong, because Lucky Roo just seems like, he just seems like a bit of a joke, but we can tell he's quite strong. Queen was a scrub, says Ningyo Collector. Look, okay, so the thing with Queen is, I think that at the very least, Jacob will talk about Raizo versus Fukurokuju in a second. Queen, at the very least, I think, a little bit more time to just, like, feel like they're really, really intimidating threats. Like, the same way we felt during, I think, about most of the other Yonko commanders so far. I think that they had a little bit more build-up to make them feel like they're threats. King and Queen kind of just got thrown into it. King felt like a threat because we did get to see Zoro really down and out. Like, if you remember, there was that chapter, the chapter that ended with Zoro's Enma acting up. That chapter, people were talking up King like he was ridiculously, like the strongest Yonko commander or something like that. That chapter, because King was just showing so many different abilities. Zoro was literally attacking him head on, could do 0 damage. King was outdoing him in swordplay and stuff like that. So, like, opinion shifts back and forth like that on a dime. Adrian Hakim, I think that King did get, some stuff established to make him feel like a significant threat. Adrian Hakim, thanks a lot. The only problem with Sanji's fight was that it was against a commander. I was just expecting a fight as intense as Cracker or Katakuri. Good story, though. Yeah, man, I think that's the general sentiment. And it's something that I talked about earlier in the stream, which is simply that it's not just amount of dramatic setup like leading up to this conflict. It's also how much Oda builds up certain threats, right? So Yonko Commander, we felt like they were a significant threat up to this point. So when you finally see Zoro and Sanji against the Yonko Commanders, you do feel like there's a certain level of build-up or excitement or meaning to those Yonko, like to that status or that level of Yonko Commander that you do want to see delivered on. And that isn't like a reader-based thing, that's an Oda-based thing. Like, he spent a lot of time building up. You even have panels in Whole Cake Island talking about, like, wow, Luffy's having so much trouble against Cracker even though he's just a subordinate. And a lot of talk about, like, how strong these calamities are, how strong these sweet generals are, etc. But I agree, good story, though. I thought, I think that the Sanji moment it will remain with me as a standout moment in Wano. One of my favorite moments in Wano. I think that... And even Zoro's Enma chapter, the chapter where Zoro got Advanced Conqueror's Haki down, I remember that as a standout chapter in Wano. I really like those two chapters. Oda shouldn't have split up the fights. He shouldn't have spliced them around like that. It skews people's opinions a lot, for sure. By Slow says, hey Morge, I've thought a lot about how Luffy could potentially beat both Kaido and Big Mom in Wano. What do you think about a 2v2 between Kaido, Big Mom, Luffy, and Shanks? I don't think that Shanks should be involved in Luffy defeating these Yonko. Because I believe that when Luffy meets Shanks again, it should be as equals. So it shouldn't be Luffy needing Shanks, in my opinion. It should not be Luffy needing Shanks' help to pull off his first great victory as a Yonko or whatever. I believe that Luffy should be coming to Shanks as essentially someone who is his equal, on par with him. So having finally pulled off a great feat like defeating a Yonko or something along those lines. To me, even just the fact that Shanks ended Whole Cake Island with that clip of him basically being like, the time for us to meet is pretty soon. To me, that's an indicator for me that Shanks is around the corner after Luffy accomplishes whatever he accomplishes in Wano. AJH17 says world government will invade if Kaido loses today. So Kaido has to win today because there is no way that the Straw Hat Alliance can deal with the world government. I mean, I have to be fair and offer my counter argument to that. I have to be fair. So in my video, because obviously what you said supports my idea that the raid fails, but I have to be fair and offer the counter argument, right? I did a video on the different routes that the Marines can take in Wano. So what will the Marines do in Wano? I did say that I think it would be honestly a great route if Kaido's defeated today. Again, the only reason the world government is lined up right there, they brought some ships, is to clean up, right? They think that they can swoop in and claim Wano as their own territory because it's like the Yonko will have been defeated. I think if Oda wanted to write things like Luffy and the rest of the crew just like they've taken down Kaido and Big Mom, world government swoops in to try and clean up like scavengers, and then Luffy and the crew basically are like they don't fight, but it's rather just a very impressive show of force, and the world government essentially has to realize that like, okay, even though Wano lost the Yonko that was protecting it, now it's under the flag of a new Yonko, and the world government has to actually start respecting Luffy and the crew as a deterrent, the same way the other Yonko are a deterrent, the same way the other Yonko can claim territories and the world government can't go touch them because it's not worth the battle. I think that would be a perfectly fine and fitting way to end the Wano arc as well. Now, obviously, I still believe that the reason the world government is here is to provide a means for, like, here's my, if you want to hear my full viewpoint, certain things that we were told, for example, that the world government is only interested in moving in if the beast pirates are defeated. And people also ask, so consider this, world government only interested in moving in if the beast pirates are defeated. And people also ask me, how would the Straw Hats escape if the raid fails, right? So, way things are looking right now, the beast pirates are fast on, like, from CP0's perspective, from what they're seeing, it looks like the Straw Hats are taking out all of the beast pirates. Yeah, it looks like the Straw Hats are taking out all of the beast pirates. Sorry about that beeping. Guess my parents are cooking something. Fire alarm's going off. Yeah, so I would not be surprised if Luffy's on the verge of defeating Kaido. CP0 is reporting back to the Marines that, okay, the beast pirates are down, swoop in. Then there's a turnabout. Kaido switching things up on Luffy, turning the tables on Luffy. Zone's awakening. Toby Roper are back on their feet. Calamity's back on their feet. And they give the Straw Hat Pirates their beatdown. Marines move in, only to realize that the beast pirates are totally fine. This creates a new conflict, amidst which, the chaos of which, the fragments of the rest of the alliance can get away. That's how I think a solid possibility of things have been set up. It's sort of a get-out-of-jail-free card for the Straw Hats that has been well set up, as this is what the Marines would do if they believe that the Beast Pirates have been defeated. Only for them to be surprised that that's not the case. Easy News Explains says, how would the story change if all of the worst generation would have been on the rooftop instead of just a select few? I don't think it changes that much. Because at the end of the day, Luffy was doing a good amount of the heavy lifting, you know what I mean, on the roof. I think Luffy was doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And I think you kind of get into diminishing returns with the, like, how much difference is Hawkins going to make, at least from what we see. How much difference is Hawkins going to make? How much is Apu going to make? How much is, like, Beige going to make? Like, I don't think it makes that much of a difference because, as we know, Kaido and Big Mom were not going all out at that point in time. Kaido still hadn't used his awakening. It took him a while for him to bust out Hybrid. Big Mom, she clearly had more in the tank because she could have, like, started taking souls, like, eating her own lifespan and stuff like she is against Kid and Law. So it's tricky because if we assume everyone's in character, right? So Kid and Law, for whatever reason, they're not using their awakenings on the roof. Luffy, he only finds out Advanced Conqueror's Haki once all the other Supernova are out of the picture, right? If things go like that natural flow, then I think having more Supernovas doesn't change anything. But if, like, everybody is getting their max power-ups right away, so, like, if Zoro gets his Advanced Conqueror's Haki right away, Luffy gets his Advanced Conqueror's Haki right away, Kid and Law decide not to hold back on their awakenings, if everybody just goes all out, then I think that, yeah, then the Supernova beat the Yonko on the roof, in my opinion. But in character, I think it doesn't matter. I think things play out the same way. Yamil Diaz says, so Morge, do you think that King is the last Lunarian, or are there others out there, perhaps in his Sky Island over Elbaf, like the Valkyrie of Norse myth? What are we counting Sanji as? Does Sanji count as Lunarian? Because we think he seems to have, like, some Lunarian blood or influence or something like that, right? It's hard to say. I think that at the moment, okay, so there's some crazy plot twists that we could get, right? I think that King is not the last Lunarian, or he's not the last person of that descent, just because there's not that much point to like dropping that in without, delivering on that in some way. And I think that more will pop up in the world. Maybe some characters that we don't know are Lunarian descent turn out to be Lunarian descent. Phantom Greyfire, thanks a lot. Miss Super Chat from Isaiah Davis. What brand of justice is / are Kobe, Garp, and Smoker? Kobe, Garp, and Smoker, it's tricky. I think Garp, I don't know. Garp, they all seem to fall into the same thing. I think Kobe, Garp, and Smoker are Oda's. They're not going to have like their point of view on justice explicitly said, like absolute justice like Akainu, or dark justice like Lucci, or like lazy justice like Aokiji or whatever. I don't think that they will explicitly have theirs explained, like verbalized like that, because I think that for Oda, their brand of justice is meant to represent sort of true justice in the world. You know what I mean? Like their viewpoints on right and wrong are supposed to represent like Oda's viewpoints on right and wrong. So like they kind of carry the actual sense of justice in the world. Sanji greater than King? I don't know about that. I don't want to open up any Sanji versus King arguments that can lead to nothing. Emil Diaz says, ideal justice. Yeah, I guess we could say that. Bobo Yo says, Kaido is not standing still. I don't know who you're responding to. Phantom Greyfire brought up something interesting. List of stuff that still needs a resolution in Wano. Hawkins prediction, Orochi, Hiyori, Big Mom Kaido fights, Zoro backstory, Zoro sword, Kaido backstory, Tama promise. Look, if we don't believe, for anyone that doesn't believe the raid fails, I don't know how we would get Zoro's backstory, what would trigger it necessarily. You would normally get that sort of storytelling done during the course of a fight. Wano prediction, Hawkins prediction, if you think the raid is not going to fail, then it doesn't really come true in any way. Big Mom Kaido fights, I agree. Then, of course, we need, you listed some other stuff. Onigashima Wano Island Mystery, yep. Big Mom Crew, yep. CP0, yep. Toki, yep. Nine Shadows, yep. Odin Journal, yep. Drake's Sword, Poneglyph, yep. Even just stuff like, Onigashima coming down, the yokai, Yamato Brook. Raizo versus Fukurokuju is like the biggest, weirdest question mark. I do wonder if Oda just forgot about it. It's completely possible. I completely opened up Sanji versus King, despite me trying not to. This is not... Fuck. Can we talk about how funny it is that King does not have Conqueror's Haki? It's actually the funniest thing. King just doesn't have Conqueror's Haki for no reason. He just doesn't have it. His name is King. The biggest misnomer in all of One Piece. Sada says, do you still say raid failing? Yes. I still don't get... People ask me that all the time when nothing has really changed. Like, if something drastically different sort of... like, 2 chapters ago it was like Sanji beat Queen. Then, like, 2 chapters later, Zoro beat King. Why would my opinion on the raid failing change between Sanji beating Queen and Zoro beating King? What's the difference there? Light Yagami says, though this chat has been super toxic for some reason. I think that's my fault. I think because I opened up with it. I wanted to not discuss it, but I did open up discussing some things like just discussing the Onigashima, the general Wano fights in general, you know what I mean? Which I probably should have stayed away from it. Tryhard says, next chapter, King stops Zoro's head in. I don't know if that's going to happen, man. Oh, wait, someone else brought up something, actually, which is true. Aiden Brink says, this chat is what happens when you excuse power scaling. It's just toxic garbage. All right, so let's flip things around. Everything I said about power scaling is 100% true. 100% true. However, I do understand why people dislike it and kind of shit on it. Because it's when you get, it's when it gets obsessive and it's just the only thing people want to talk about that it gets bad. So it's kind of like... excusing power scaling, I don't think that's a thing. I think like it's important, and the author clearly cares about it because the author goes way out of his way. Do you think Oda separated things into Toby Roppo and Calamities for fun? Do you think Oda like ranked Baroque Works agents from 1 to like 10 for fun? No, like he does these things to suggest that there are levels to this and build up the notion that like, yeah, there's a greater threat associated with stronger opponents, which is what builds up to, that's what causes a sense of drama, a sense of stakes, builds excitement, increases sense of satisfaction as you see characters achieve higher and higher things, right? Power scaling is essential to the One Piece story. It's extremely important. However, it's when it becomes all people want to talk about, when there's so many more interesting things to talk about. It's more so just like everybody kind of needs to have a general idea that like, sense of threat is generally going up, enemies generally becoming stronger, characters generally becoming stronger. As long as we're on the same page with that, and we feel the sense of excitement that comes with that, then we're pretty much fine. Then we can focus on more important things like, I don't even want to say more important things, but like, let's say at least more interesting things like what's happening with the characters, the ideas behind the arc, how Oda is structuring things. Like there's the lore. There's so many other things to talk about than the power scaling. I just don't like it when people are like, oh, it doesn't matter at all. Because it's like, if you think it doesn't matter at all, then you're literally reading like a 8-year-old or a 4th grader. You're saying shit like, yeah, I think my favorite character, like Carrot, can beat like Big Mom or some shit. Like that's what if you say you don't care about power scaling at all, that's essentially what you mean. You're reading it like an 8-year-old. It's the people that read it like 12-year-olds that are the worst, which is basically where power scaling matters, but you think about it too much and you bring it up all the time, and you need to have an absolute ranking of like, Katakuri is definitely stronger than King, is definitely stronger than this marker, is definitely stronger than Ben Beckman, or Ben Beckman's definitely stronger than Katakuri. Like, it's when you get into that and you like need to know like this person is stronger than this person is strong. You need to have your entire top 30 like exact perfectly right. That's when it's just like, yeah, power scaling is toxic and stupid. So apologies if I steered us in the wrong way by excusing power scaling. Hazard and Gibson says, man, it's going to be sad to see Luffy without the straw hat. Will he actually give it back to Shanks? I mean, what's the name of his crew now? I personally think... Alright, if you subscribe to the belief that Shanks will die, like, I personally think that Blackbeard will kill Shanks, and I think that's an eventuality that will happen in the series, alright? So if you follow my belief that Blackbeard will eventually kill Shanks, and that will be an important death in the story, maybe the final important death in the story, if you subscribe to that idea, then I think things that make sense to me are Luffy actually returning the straw hat to Shanks the next time they meet, checking that off, leaving, right? Then there's actually a small section of the story maybe where Luffy does not have the straw hat because Shanks has it again. If Blackbeard kills Shanks, then kind of the final segment of the story would be, and it's somewhat symbolic, Luffy picking back up the straw hat, putting it on for the final section of the story because, now he's picking it up. Now he's finally like truly inheriting it from Shanks permanently or something like that. So if you believe Shanks dies, I think that there's a nice little window in there in the story where it would make sense if Luffy can return the straw hat, not have it for some time. During that time, maybe some bad things happen. Maybe Shanks dies. And then the final ending stretch of the story begins with Luffy picking back the straw hat up one last time, going into the final war. I think that would be pretty cool. Kind of reminiscent of Luffy having to put down the straw hat temporarily to train during the time skip, and then putting it back on once he's all trained and ready for the new world and going into the new world after the time skip. Cigar Verk says Straw Hats won't leave Wano without making it as Straw Hat territory. Without making it a Straw Hat territory. Agreed. Be it world government coming, Wano has suffered enough. Luffy won't leave it in anyone else's hands now. I 100% agree. I think no matter how this stuff plays out, this will finally be the arc where Luffy and the Straw Hats do not have to like run away from the island at the end of the story. I think it's finally an arc where like it's their island, right? They protect Wano. Wano's under their territory, and the Marines can't mess with it or else risk all-out war with a Yonko, which is Luffy and the Straw Hats. Easy News Explains says Madara versus Kaido and Big Mom. This is a troll, but it is definitely going to derail chat for a while as they debate Madara versus Kaido and Big Mom. Anuj Agrawal says, glad I missed the power scaling shit show, Phantom. Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay, new rule. I won't talk about power scaling. We just won't do it. We'll talk about clean stuff. This is a clean stream. Kason O'Lean says, in your opinion, in the final war, will there be the Beast Pirates and Big Mom Pirate? Will there be the Big Beast Pirates and Big Mom Pirates land? Will they side with or against our Mugiwara? So we don't know anything else. I'm trying to understand this. I think we don't know anything else about Kaido's other territories. Maybe Kaido doesn't have another territory. I think that'd be... No, that's not true, because Kaido... We know the island that X-Drake landed on, which was Kaido's favorite island. I don't know what happens to those territories once Kaido is gone. But Totland kind of sucks. They just don't really know it, right? Totland kind of sucks. They just don't know how bad they have it. Although at the same time, Totland, they are pretty happy. They like willingly give up their lifespan. It's just like a bad system, but at the same time, they are kind of happy. They just don't know how bad they have it. So I've got nothing to say on Totland, but I can only imagine that Kaido's other islands suck. Ninerbot says, missed my super chat. Let me take a look. Let me find that for you, Ninerbot. Did I miss it? Where is it? Cigar. Nanobot says, I don't think we will ever get a Zoro backstory. His character is supposed to be seen as a mystery, fits the wandering swordsman stoic archetype. I would agree. Dude, I would have agreed earlier in the story, and I really, really preferred it when Oda didn't really have much to his backstory. No hints at it. But Oda introducing the things he's introduced, especially Oda playing up the Ryuma parallels and stuff, and especially like the Shimotsuki stuff, I feel like it's very possible it leads somewhere. It's almost like more frustrating that it doesn't, it hasn't led anywhere. You know what? Like, to me, it's like either don't introduce it ever or just go full blown with it and like tell us the full backstory. I don't like this little middle ground that we're at right now where some hints have been dropped about him being from Wano and stuff like that, but it seems arbitrary or doesn't seem to have much of a point. You know, if it doesn't really play into, if we're not actually getting a backstory or having it play a role in the arc. So I don't really know. We'll see how things go. Edward Roman, hey man. Hello Morge, thank you for making mod. You're the best, thanks man. Quick question, thoughts on how hot King was? Was Oda in his bag with his design? Yeah, again, I've talked about it. I think it just plays into the idea that Lunarians are like this godlike race, right? Like, so it makes sense that King's just like, again, I said King looks like a male model or whatever in the chapter because he's just like, that race is supposed to be, I guess, like a superior race to human beings. And I did think King's design was really cool. King's design was really, really cool. People have said this before, but Oda goes hard with the first mate designs. Oda loves his first mate designs. You know the one guy, okay, this might be controversial. I think Rayleigh's old man design, Rayleigh as we see him now, today, old man Rayleigh, I think that's really cool. I think young Rayleigh's design, it's not a bad design by any means, but I don't think it's that cool. I don't think young Rayleigh's design is that cool. That might just be me. If I had to rank, I would say Katakuri, let me say ranking first mate out of the Yonko Pirate King types, right? Ranking designs, I'd say, for me, I think Katakuri is the coolest design. I'm going to leave Zoro out if it's just too hard to rank. We know Zoro so well. How do we even rank him, right? Can't really rank him in that same way. I'd say Katakuri, coolest design. Maybe the coolest design Oda's ever done. Up there, right? Katakuri, King, Ben Beckman. Ben Beckman's another case where I think he looks cooler now that he's older, right? With like gray hair and stuff. Ben Beckman, really? Shiryu, it's hard for me to rank Shiryu. It's really hard for me to rank Shiryu. I don't think Shiryu's design's that cool. I think it's like, it's hard to explain. I don't think Shiryu's design is as cool as the other guys. Maybe that's just me. Let's do a fun poll. Let me see, do you guys think Katakuri's design, which design is better? Better design. Let me see. You guys like Katakuri better, or you like King better? I'm interested to see what happens. People really like Katakuri's character. So, I know people love Katakuri way more than they like King, so I wouldn't be surprised if he won. Power Rangers says, what if SSG has something to do with Lunarian DNA? Oda didn't just show King being tested numerous times for no reason. Guys, Punk Hazard is so fucking interesting now. The further we go in the story, the more interesting Punk Hazard becomes. I cannot wait till we find out the SSG. I'm actually really, really, really looking forward. Oh, it's tight. 52%. 52% Katakuri, 48% King. All right, we're going to end the poll. Get your votes in right now. We're going to end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right? Let's see how things shook out. That was really tight. I was a little surprised. Joy Girl says, need a final raid is failing video. Yeah, I think I already made one of those final raid failing videos, Joy Girl. So if I can't put out another video saying that this is the final raid failing video. I got to be more creative. I got to slip it in over and over, but just in different videos. Also, sorry I was not able to drop by the charity stream yesterday. It looks like it was extremely successful, though. I would have tried to join if my flight was like on its normal schedule, which was I was supposed to get back to the East Coast at like 8 p.m. So I would have been able to hop into the stream for a little bit, probably. But instead, it's complicated what happened, but I got rebooked, I got rebooked twice. It was just the worst thing. They sent me to, I'm not going to get into it. I'm not getting into it. But I missed my flight for a very stupid reason. I got rebooked. Then there was an issue with my rebooking. So then they had to rebook me again to a different city that was close to the city I'm supposed to go to. And then I had to be driven from that city to my my parents' house. It was just a giant pain. So I got home at like midnight. So that kind of sucked. But no more raid failing videos for the moment. All my thoughts are currently out there in videos as they need to be understood. The most recent video where I kind of pitch raid failing ideas is the Zone Awakenings video. But maybe in like 2 months, if the raid still hasn't failed, I'll do another one. Because then enough time will have passed. John Ross says, first 3 episodes of Arcane are okay, 4 to 6 are great. Okay, well, John Ross, other people told me earlier in the stream that I just have to watch the first 3 episodes, and then I'll be hooked. So what's that supposed to mean? First 3 episodes, by the way, is 2 hours. So again, that's a full-length feature film is what you're asking me to watch. So 4 to 6 are great, the last 3 are phenomenal. Oh, okay. So you say it keeps getting better and better. I'll consider it. Joy Girl says, are the Beast Pirates getting up? Yes. Please watch, everybody here, do 2 things. Please watch my video on Zone Awakenings. It came out like 3 days ago. It's a good video in my opinion. Please watch that video. And second, please go to the Morge store, link in the description below, and check out the posters. Get a poster while you still can. These are beautiful, amazing posters made by Aiden Capristo, a very talented artist, individual type thing, you know. Just get the posters. You'll love them. You won't regret them. Not like the plushes, which you all regret at this point. Assassin Silencio says, I believe Smoker is part of Sword, and Sword is against the world government. On Stampede, why Smoker and Lucci went after the log post. Hint, I don't believe that Stampede knows jack shit about, the actual direction of the manga. I will maintain till the end of time that the anime and movies or whatever, they don't know anything about anything that happens in the future of One Piece, unless Oda really goes out of his way to warn them. So I think Smoker versus Lucci was just like a random thing. We've had another movie where Saba and Lucci have fought, so I don't know. But Smoker being part of Sword is cool. I would be down for Smoker being part of Sword. I think that's a really good idea. Jorgirl says, but a final one. I could just label it the final video on the raid failing and then get away with it. So I'll save that. I'll see if I've got a gap in what type of video I want to do, like for 1 week in February or something like that. And then, if it feels right, I'll do another one. JP says, love your streams. I could see you narrating a documentary or audiobook. Oh, yeah, that's cool. Thank you. I appreciate it. The way you speak is digestible and your explanations are great. Mod me because Christmas. You asshole, you're just buttering me up. That's dirty. That's not very Christmassy of you. Just buttering me up to mod you. I'm just going to pretend you didn't ask that at the end and that it was all a very genuine compliment. Besides that, I know people mentioned that they wanted this as a podcast. I can actually start putting this up as a podcast. I could put it on Spotify. I know a lot of people, they watch these afterwards on their drive to work or whatever. So I'll look into that. We actually have a virtual assistant for the channel now. So there's certain things that can be done, that I wasn't doing before just because they're easier now. Let me see. Where are we at? Crazy Stevie says, not much, but just want to show my support. Thank you, Crazy Stevie. I appreciate you very much. Aldioth0505 says, considering how he keeps falling up into success, I imagine at the end there will be a decent chunk of the world that argues Buggy is Pirate King. I think that Oda won't go that far just because it kind of devalues like the most important thing in the series for a gag. You know, the reason that Buggy ended up becoming a Shichibukai was because we were at a point in the story where the title Shichibukai really didn't mean that much, right? Once we were past Moria being a Shichibukai, and once we were in the, Marineford War, and we understand like just how crazy things actually get out there, we understood that being a Shichibukai, it's kind of not a big deal. Blackbeard became a Shichibukai with like a 0 berry bounty. Stuff like that happens. Tittle TTs, nice name, says maybe Luffy's Straw Hat is destroyed before his final attack on the Red Line, symbolizing that he's gone beyond being Straw Hat Luffy. I don't know about that. I don't think I would personally like it. I think that would be, it'd be some symbolism, I guess, but at the same time, it's like, fuck, that, like, the most satisfying moment is getting rid of, like, one of our favorite parts of One Piece. I don't know if that works, really. You know what I mean? Wait a sec, what's happening over here? Anime Nakama is trying to direct people to go watch Joy Girl's stream. Or what is this? Joy News. To watch Joy News. On my stream. In front of my eyes. Well. Joy Girl saying, Anime Nakama, haha, please finish Morja's stream first. Anime Nakama, I have half a mind to ban you. Coming in here, just ditching me, throwing me under the bus for the first person that comes through, first other YouTuber that comes through. Typical. Silver of the Deep says, will Luffy awaken his fruit in Wano, and will Zoro get a black blade in Wano? Look, will Luffy get a... I think Zoro will get a black blade in Wano. Again, because I believe that there's a lot more action to be had in Wano. As for Luffy getting Awakening, it's tricky because, like, I've always just imagined Awakening being set up for Luffy versus Blackbeard, because that's just the fight where it fits the best. It's just the perfect counterpart to Blackbeard's abilities. And at the same time, like, Luffy's had so many power-ups this arc. First Advanced Armament, then Advanced Conquerors. So then to get Awakening on top of that, I wouldn't be opposed to another gear, just because it feels like another gear is due, if that makes sense. But, like, Awakenings are things that he hasn't even been working on whatsoever, as far as we know. You know what I mean? Like, gears, we're kind of in the flow of Luffy getting new gears. Like, he busts something new out regularly. Like, first Gear 4th, then he shows Gear 4th Tank Man, then he shows Gear 4th Snake Man. I think a new gear, especially with how much Luffy has been using Gear 4th recently, I don't think that would be too out of left field. But Awakening would be like another... My eyes bother me. Awakening would be like another Advanced Conquerors hockey moment where it's like something totally out of the blue that Luffy clearly had not worked on before. Tittle TT says, Usopp will be force-fed a smile if the raid fails, to tie that back into being a personal conflict for Chopper to resolve. I think that would be really cool. That'd be an amazing idea. I have said before that if the raid fails, I believe that, Usopp would be taken hostage. I think that would be amazing. And I think that'd be a really, really, really good personal conflict for Chopper to have to resolve. It makes the need to cure Smile, which I think is something that Chopper will do by the end of the arc. It makes it a more immediate, important need. So I'm down for that. I think that's a great idea. JP says, I had to ask, everything said was genuine. I know, JP, I'm kidding for the most part, so it's all entertainment. I'll just believe everything else you said. Red X says, Luffy losing all of his hockey after being defeated by Kaido would force him to work on his Devil Fruit, which can lead to awakening his arc. That's a cool idea, Red X. I think that is an interesting idea. I just would rather not... I would rather not him have another... I would rather him not have, like, another... another Advanced Conquerors hockey moment where it's kind of, like, completely out of the blue, almost. Obviously, Conquerors hockey was set up in some ways, but, like, again, it's just, like, another awakening moment. Aha, Devil Fruit Awakening, right? Another awakening moment where, like, Suddenly it's like, okay, I solved this new thing, now I've got this other power, right? Jacob Patina says Zoro isn't sexist. King mentions he's superior because of his biology, and Zoro gets upset because your biology, race/gender doesn't determine strength. I mean, but like Zoro said as much to Shigi recently, right? So like at the very least, Zoro doesn't believe that race plays a role, but I think Zoro could still believe that, like, in terms of sex or gender, it seems like Zoro might still be a little behind the times. James Halder says, I'm an Indian marketing major. Think I should get an MBA. What are your goals? Think about your goals before you decide if you want to get an MBA or not. If you want, avenues like in companies to be opened up to you, then yeah, an MBA is pretty useful. If you want to do your own thing, then fuck an MBA. It doesn't teach you anything. But the value of those sort of, higher education, what it can do for getting jobs is really, that's really valuable. If you want to go out and do your own thing, don't do that. So, again, I do, it's shifted a little bit. Now we're like system optimization for other businesses, specifically for marketing agencies. But the business that I have, which was originally a marketing agency, one of the three partners that I worked with, he graduated with a, bachelor's in business. Didn't help jack shit. They had like a whole marketing specifically, business marketing. Applies zero to real world like marketing agencies. It's actually garbage what they teach you. And it was from like a decent college too. Literally like close to zero application. Close to zero. It's literally just for the degree. They don't teach you that much like actually like what works in the real world and stuff like that. Because I don't know what the reasoning for it is. Maybe because like, especially when you get in the realm of digital marketing and things like that, these things are evolving very, very fast. And top digital marketers, like, they're kind of coming up with new ways to make Facebook ads work, Google ads work, things like that, right? So because the platforms you advertise on and the real world knowledge that you need, you can only get by like actually getting in there and doing it yourself pretty much. The things that they teach you in college, at least for undergrad, I don't know about like, master's, MBA. At least for undergrad, it's like, it's very conceptual, principle-based stuff that has very little real-world value. It's like good stuff to teach for homework assignments, you know what I mean? Tittle TT says, another idea. Luffy gets a satisfying beatdown on Kaido and then ends the fight by essentially breaking Kaido's spirit and KOing him with Conquerors. I would rather that, like, what do you call? He gets, how do you say? I would rather that Luffy, if Kaido's spirit is broken, that's fine, but as long as Luffy's spirit is really, really, really heavily tested, in my opinion, like, over the course of the Luffy versus Kaido battle, I think that matters a lot more. Jorgo says, we need a new Morge advice channel. I wonder how that would go. It'd be a fun alternative to just talking about One Piece all the time. Not that I dislike talking about One Piece all the time, but again, different outlet, different stuff to talk about. Ningyo Collector says, then he grew up and realized what he said as a child was naive. I think I'm missing something here. One Piece Film Z. Look, I'll watch One Piece Film Z at some point. Shushin9000 said, I'm also a person that studied marketing in uni. Yeah, well, it looks like you've studied the same thing I have. I didn't study marketing personally, but one of my three business partners did. It's actually a joke. I think that unless... It's tricky because... So, from my experience... I have friends who are engineers, for example. Very often, they don't apply that much of what they learned in college to their engineering jobs. I think that will probably vary depending on where you're working, but I have a friend who works at Northrop Grumman, which is a very established company. Says he does not apply much of his knowledge to engineering, right? It's been my experience in business, government politics, which was actually my major. The stuff they teach you is like a joke. Like, you do not need a government politics degree whatsoever to be involved in politics, to like run for things or anything like that. Most things that, I'm not going to say anything on college that other people haven't said before, but I think that it's just a little bit sad that like so much of what you learn in college is literally just, it's performative. It's just pretending to learn things that are setting you up for your career, when in reality it's just the degree that you get at the end of the day that actually has value. The knowledge you get from it doesn't matter that much. However, flip side of it is that I think that a lot of what you get out of college is different in that it forces you into certain environments, right? You do grow as a person going through college and having to be in, like, I guess, a bit more of an academic environment, as well as, like, it's a nice half step into adulthood and, like, interacting in a certain sphere before actually just being thrown into a job and everything like that. So I'd always say that college is a very valuable experience, and obviously you need the degree if you want to pursue a job in something. But it's just like, you don't actually, the knowledge, the raw knowledge you get out from the stuff, it's just like, it's a bit of a joke. Nelson Castro asked, where'd you go to college? I'd rather not share. I try to keep my personal stuff as tight as possible. I would rather not share. Sorry about that, but that's just basically it. Wait, 3-3... Wait a second. Am I wrong? 333ville, evil. That is a YouTuber, right? That is the YouTuber. Is that Octopus? I'm gonna add 333ville evil as mod, and then if it turns out to not be him, then we'll just unmod later. That is you, right? Angel Reese says, I have a headcanon where black blades are made through a Klabauterman-like spirit. If objects like ships gain spirits to show affection and help their owners, I can see something similar like that with blades. That's a whole different terror. First of all, Zoro does not want... I guarantee one thing that Zoro does not want is his three swords becoming manifested spirits and, like, hanging out with him. Alright, Zoro likes his alone time. He does not need to be walking out with, like... He's not like Nami and Zeus, He doesn't want, like, three spirits just, like, hanging out with him the entire time. I don't think Zoro doesn't really like that too much. I think it's an interesting idea. Black blades are one of those things that I really, really don't know if, what do you call? I really, really don't know with black blades if that's something, like, so many things that, I think Oda is very good at retroactively connecting things, and I do think that Oda is the best author, mangaka that I know at, like, planning things ahead. I don't know if black blades are one of those things that he definitely did plan. I think it might have been something that, like, happened to connect really well later down the line. But, yeah, that's kind of my take on the black blades thing. So therefore, I don't know if Oda would go as far as something like even adding spirits on top of those black blades. But I don't know. Maybe as the black blade concept expands, we get more realization that Oda has it very planned, and maybe it's more fleshed out than we think. Adrian Torres says, it's to weed people out now. The people who don't apply themselves shouldn't deserve those high-earning jobs. Yes, it is to weed people out, I guess. That is true. I think I have a poor perspective on it because I did not go down... You can't look at me because I didn't go down a traditional route, right? Like, I didn't want to... I could have chosen to go to law school. I didn't. I chose to do, I guess, first entrepreneurial things, then business things, basically, and now it's a mix between business and YouTube. So it's tricky. So I can't say concretely, like, oh, it's to weed people out who shouldn't deserve those high-earning jobs. That's true, but then at the end of the day, like, how hard you try in college, it's not as reflective of, like, how well you will do in an actual company, where that's one of the things that's always bothered me about the education system, which is that, like, incentives aren't there. People work differently, like, very different people work very differently with different incentives. So, when you're a kid, let's say you're in school, the only incentive you have is grades and the opportunity to go to a better college, right? But then once you're in college, the only incentive is, like, again, better grades. And ideally, in theory, if you get those good grades, then that does well for your resume, which you can get a better job. So it's more tangential connections between school into college, like the work that you're putting in, what are you getting out of it? It's not concrete, right? When you put things like people into context where, like, money is on the line, right? And you're actually working to actually, like, let's say, help a company, or not just help a company, but, like, further your career, your desire to do things like overtime, or, like, hit goals because it's directly tied to your job, or you want to succeed and get better and get raises and things like that. those incentives are just so wildly different that I just don't like the fact that you need to do these performative 4 years, right? These essential 4 years basically just to do the 4 years and like prove that you're kind of sticking with it and getting some degree of extra experience or whatever before going into the job, because you don't know how somebody would do, if they essentially just are given that incentive from the start. It's just different. I think it's hard to compare. Angel Reed says, I have a headcanon where Blackblade... Oh, no, we covered this. My bad. Let's see. Where are we at? Van Hohenheim says, do you think End of Story Zoro will surpass Roger? No. That's just me personally. I don't think so. I think he'll surpass Rayleigh, so whatever that's worth to you. Miss Super Chat from Silver of the Deep. When do you think we will see Kuzan again? Honestly, we might see him as soon as the in-between between Act 3 and 4, or obviously if you don't think that there's an in-between between Act 3 and 4, then we may see him as soon as, end of Wano and some of the post-world building there, because I think we'll get some more information, regarding the state of the Blackbeard Pirates, which in turn will shed some light on Kuzan. Also, just shedding some light on things like Sword and things, which may also shed some light on Kuzan. Okay, that is evil. It's evil, right? It's not 333 evil. It's evil. I'll assume it's evil for sure. And then we'll just go forward with that. Tittle TT says, Kaido makes Luffy join his crew to take the Ace name. Thoughts? Ooh, that's juicy. That's actually really cool. That's such a cool idea. That's a dope idea. Love that idea. That's pretty cool. I don't know if Luffy would ever join Kaido's crew, but that... if we're just spitballing things here, that's really cool. AJH says, any Western media that you follow closely? Were you a big Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad fan? Yeah, I think up till... Honestly, again, just coincidental because we're still talking about college, right? Until college ended, I was very much in tune with every popular Western TV show, so everything that was popular at that time, obviously Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones, but also, Stranger Things, Game of Thrones, Westworld, anything that was Mindhunter, stuff like that, anything that was going around that period of time. I think in general I watched most of the popular acclaimed Western TV shows for a good period of time. Even stuff that's on the far end of just being popular, like Walking Dead, stuff like Mad Men, I would just watch a lot of that stuff. I think I cut down on TV shows a lot in the last 4 years. So I'm not as in tune to Western media in terms of TV shows right now. Princess Taco says, mod tier list is never going to happen. Not with that attitude. With that attitude, you won't rank well on the mod tier list. So, let's see. Mod tier list I've said this before. Mod tier list, again, will happen the same time I do the Film Z watch through. Golden Row, what's up? How you doing, man? Pirate King Juice is Mort. How much are all of your bills combined? That is a interesting question. You talking about bills like things I pay every month, like rent and utilities? That's like $2K. If you're talking about bills like everything, like how much you want to throw in insurance and shit like that, and food, groceries, fun expenses, then I don't really know. People are talking against Arcane now. Plank Step says, don't watch Arcane, it's boring. I don't know about that. I think I'll give Arcane a try. Terra Sai says, it's scary how similar I look to Morge. I don't know what that means. So Abe Singh says, nah, Morge a weeb. No, even anime, I started watching, I used to watch... Okay, so the most anime I watched was in high school. That was the most anime I watched. I watched more manga post-college. That's when I watched more manga. Ozymandias says college is job conditioning, in my opinion. Yeah, that's probably true. College is job conditioning. But it's just such loose job conditioning, you know what I mean? Jorgo says, see ya, Jorgo, thanks for coming through. Bluey1232 says, "Are you drinking a spa?" No, I'm drinking a loose cannon right now. Phantom Greyfire says, "More read Oyasumi Pun Pun if you haven't." I've heard that would make me very sad, so I don't know about that. Watched manga? Yeah, I watched some manga. You know what I mean. You guys know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. Did I see Randy Troy's video on rocks being Lunarians destroyed? No, but that sounds like a really cool idea. I do not watch other people's videos nowadays, period. So if you ask me, have I watched X person or not, I have not. But I'll hear the idea, and I think that sounds like a cool idea. Did I watch No Way Home? No, I'm surprised we didn't have more No Way Home comments here. I've not watched No Way Home. I'm still going to watch it at some point. Kayan Wozniak says, LMAO, college is nothing like jobs, internships or job conditioning. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's not really job conditioning. It's like, it's so... It's not at all. It just isn't. I get the idea in that it forces you to work. Like, it forces your standard of work to be higher. You know what I mean? Like, it's more academic. You're among people who are more educated, I suppose. So it basically forces you to, a higher... Yeah, just like a higher... Yeah, like you're competing in a higher standard, right? So in that sense, I guess it's like a job thing. Like a job training, I guess. But at the same time, I think you could be served if you just went right in after high school to a degree. But you need that degree. And I think like just the general life experience out of college is good. I value the life experience out of college. Lobster Boy says, how do you get out of the friend zone? So in my opinion, I don't think that this is like... maybe it's not a popular opinion, but in my opinion, if someone sees you as a friend, it's kind of like, I don't think you really get out of that. You know what I mean? Like, if someone sees you as a friend, then that means that they're not, like, attracted to you. They're not romantically attracted to you. Like, that's just not, and, like, the way we work, like, it's very instinctive, right? So it's not going to change past your first impressions. And what's funny is that, like, I think you kind of have to, whatever your initial dynamic with this person that you might be interested in, that's what matters. So that kind of sets it whether it's friend or not friend, basically, going forward. I totally understand that, like, I'm sure plenty of people have stories about, like, well, I was friends with this person for a long time and then eventually got together. And I feel like a lot of those stories I hear, at least from people I know, those tend to be more accurate when people are in relationships or whatever. So, like, that's different. So, like, if someone else is in a relationship, and then you're friends with them at that point, but then they're out of the relationship, then things change. You know what I mean? Like, if there's a reason that you wouldn't be sort of romantically, together. But to me, it's different if, like, somebody does literally just view you as a friend and you haven't kind of set the dynamic in a not friend way from the start. Then I don't think that, I just don't think that really changes. And I think it's kind of unfair to hope that someone, like, changes their mind to view you as a more than a friend, basically, if you've known them for, like, 6 months or, like, a year or something. Like, you've kind of had that friend relationship for that long. You know what I mean? Yeah, the entire chat just basically... Yeah, you don't. You basically don't. College is for networking, says Castleford. I made zero, like, actual, like, networking connections with people that, like, professionals, basically, in college. It is for networking, I guess, in the sense that, like, people from my year, you know what I mean? Like, from my year, or not from my year, like, people I went to college with, I have actually, like, been able to connect on, like, certain, like, and gotten advice and stuff like that with them since college, basically, and, like, that's been helpful to have, other people professionally who might be, like, who might have some insight into whatever you're working on or whatever. But in terms of, like, outside stuff, like, I think I said, this was because I was lazy with it, though. I said 0 internships and stuff like that in college. I kind of, like, half-heartedly tried, but I really didn't. I really, really didn't try to create, like, professional connections or, like, do the proper stuff you're supposed to do going out of college, you know what I mean? But that's because I think I always knew that I didn't really want to go into a job path like that afterwards. Diddle TT says, what do you think of Usopp versus Apu, since Apu controls the numbers and can be considered a cowardly lion? Roar of the Sea Apu. That's an interesting idea. That's definitely an interesting idea, but at the same time, it looks like we're getting Apu versus X Drake. You know what I mean? Terrasai says, is your real name Morge? No. 333vil, I'm going to say Evil, right? I'm going to assume that's the name. Hey Morge, thoughts on the conversation Shanks had with the Gorosei? So I haven't put too much thought into that. I mean, my three default assumptions are basically either he's talking about Luffy, most boring option, Blackbeard, most likely option from how we know Shanks and Blackbeard's history, etc. He's kind of the pirate that Shanks has always been on the lookout for, starting with, their history of Shanks and Blackbeard as youngins, Shanks and Whitebeard's conversation about Blackbeard and Ace, all the way to the Marineford War, right? So, Blackbeard's kind of the guy that if I had to put my money, I'd go with the generic option and say Blackbeard. And then Kaido's kind of the interesting one, because Kaido would just be something like, maybe if we have a break between acts, we can find out something about that conversation and find out something between Shanks and Kaido that might be relevant to the Wano arc. We do know that Shanks and Kaido encountered each other during the Marineford War, so there's something that came out of that interaction, hopefully that could be interesting. So Luffy, Blackbeard, and Kaido are the three options. If I had to put my money on it, I'd say, Blackbeard is the most straightforward one. I think Kaido is the most interesting one, because there might be some interesting stuff relevant to the current story right now that came out of that conversation. And then Luffy's kind of the most boring one, I guess, because it's probably just... No, I don't even know what Shanks would want to talk to the Gorosei about Luffy with. Shanks would want to talk to the Gorosei about Luffy for. Weird offhand option, because we were in the context at that time of learning about rocks for the first time, right? Really off-brand option would just be if Shanks wants to bring up rocks and some integral history or some crucial history about rocks is suddenly coming into play or something like that, and Shanks feels it's important to bring that up with the Gorosei right now, some sort of legacy of rocks or something, just because rocks was first name dropped I think a chapter ago or something like that, so it was very relevant at that point in the story. But yeah, if I had to put my money, I'd say Blackbeard, straightforward. Most interesting, in my opinion, would be Kaido. Off-brand pick would be Rocks. Most boring option that I don't think it is Luffy. Casey Nolene says, suppose the raid does fail, how does Wano end? I think it ends the same place. I think it ends in the same ending point, which is defeating Kaido, freeing Wano, Big Mom also defeated, Orochi defeated, clearing of the slate, etc. Luffy, new bounties, blah, 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 Wano under the Straw's protection. I think we get a lot more. I think there's so much more to learn about Wano, right? That the ramifications of freeing Wano could mean a lot more by the time the arc ends. But I think in general it tells a much more powerful character story. Adrian Torres says, is Rocks going to appear in the Kaido flashback, or does Rocks come up post-time skip Wano? I definitely think Rocks should show up hopefully at the start of the Kaido flashback. I think that'd be really good. I think that Rocks, because if you've seen my videos, you know that Rocks basically, especially the recent videos that I talk about Kaido's backstory, I kind of basically explain how much Rocks should likely play a role in that. Just because it seems like the only source that Kaido could have learned about true history information, right? Joy Boy, the importance of Wano. The only source that we know of where Kaido could have learned about these things is Rocks himself, right? That's the only source of information. Kaido can't read the poneglyphs. He doesn't have access to someone that can read the poneglyphs. He doesn't have some other source of true history information. And he's known about this stuff for a long, long time, right? Since he freed King. So Rocks seems like the logical person that he would have gotten this information from. And because we know that Kaido was kind of a apprentice on Rocks' crew, sounds similar to how Shanks was an apprentice on Roger's ship, to me that makes sense in the sense that if there's a bit of a parallel there, Kaido almost being a bit of a protege to Rocks early on, then it sounds right to me that some information could have been shared between the two about the nature of the world, a certain man that the world is waiting for, things like that. And I think that would be really fitting. One of None says King versus Katakuri. You asked the question I really didn't want to talk about this stream. If I had to make a call, I don't know. I literally don't know. If I really had to make a call, I think it's hard for... I really, really don't know. I really don't know. King might... Okay, I don't know. Would people be satisfied with this? I think Katakuri might be stronger against more people, but maybe King is like a bad matchup for Katakuri, maybe. Because, the defense and everything like that King has, it seems like it's really difficult to damage him. Zoro had advanced Conqueror's Haki, which is why it makes sense that Zoro could maybe put him down, but, like, maybe King, the defense is too hard for Katakuri to get through with his attacks. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong on that. And then the flip side of that is that I think that fire does seem like something that could be, especially magma, right? That's what King has. Maybe that's something that could be particularly effective against Mochi and injuring Katakuri. But at the same time, Katakuri's observation haki and stuff, it's so good. Like, it's so ridiculously good. It's the best we've seen in the series so far, so maybe King never hits him. Maybe King never hits him. Maybe eventually Katakuri's able to put in enough damage that he eventually puts down King. I don't know. I think it's really, really hard to say. I would say that no matter what, like, Katakuri was a more hyped up character. But at the same time, you could argue, counter-argument is that that might have just been a product of where we were at in the story where, the Yonko first mate is just going to get naturally a lot of hype because that's currently Luffy's enemy in the story. I don't know. Stephen Bracana says, following the theme of destruction and rebirth, what if Luffy destroys Onigashima on the actual final battle after it landed when they failed here? Destroys Onigashima on the actual final battle. Let me just check the time. I'm probably going to call the stream in 10 minutes. So let me answer this. Following the theme of destruction and rebirth, what if Luffy destroys Onigashima on the actual final battle after it landed when they failed here? I would love that, because that's very similar to an imagery that we get over and over throughout the series, a large structure that has kind of taken place as a symbol of oppression for the people. Talk about Arlong Park, right? You talk about, so it depends, because Doflamingo's it depends, but you get the idea. Like a symbol of destruction, basically, right? Or not destruction, symbol of oppression, basically, that Luffy can destroy to symbolically free the people, etc. Right? And Luffy punching downwards is a very common theme, not common theme, recurring idea, right? King K says, how do you envision the fight with Luffy and Big Mom, and by extension her crew, versus the Straws fitting into Wano specifically? I also want it to happen, but I'm struggling to naturally slot it in. Again, it only makes sense to me, in my opinion, if the raid fails, blah, 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 broken record. At the moment right now, there's no way that Luffy fights Big Mom. Right? At the moment right now, it looks like Kid and Law versus Big Mom. I don't think that's particularly good, but at the moment, reality is that's what it looks like. So if the raid fails, then I personally believe that we get a mix. I think that the Big Mom crew and the Kaido crew combined provide enough matchups that the Supernovas, the Straw Hats, etc., everybody can get their piece. I think that would require the Big Mom Pirates actually being a force or a threat in this arc. So I think those two pirate crews combined give everybody a piece, and I think that it's very possible that we get something like Luffy and Kid versus Big Mom before Luffy and the Straw Hats versus Kaido or something like that. But I do think that Luffy's involved at the very least in the defeat of Big Mom and then Kaido. I think that he would do it in order, essentially. And he might do it with different people by his side, or maybe one's a solo and one's a team effort. I don't know. But I think Luffy versus Big Mom, it's so absurdly important and so absurdly built up throughout the series. There's just so much narrative setup behind it. I have a hard time imagining, even if Kid and Law beat her right here, I have a hard time imagining Luffy not at some point having his showdown with Big Mom, because it's just, the amount of build up to it is insane. It's higher than any Luffy villain that he's defeated so far. Luffy versus Big Mom is more built up than any other matchup Luffy has had in the story so far. Except for arguably Kaido. Luffy and Kaido's arguably got roughly the same amount of build-up. But any matchup before that, Luffy versus Lucci, Luffy versus Doflamingo, Luffy versus Crocodile, etc., you can go down the list. Luffy versus Big Mom has significantly, by several orders of magnitude, more story time devoted to setting up and leading towards that showdown. Wayne JR says, I don't think Kid and Law should beat Big Mom. If Oda's not going to have the raid fail, right? If the raid's not going to fail and Kid and Law are going to beat Big Mom, I'd be cool with it, I guess, if it's a temporary situation. I don't mind it as long as Luffy does get his time with Big Mom, because otherwise it's just what was all that time for? What was that entire, you've built it so integrally into Luffy and Big Mom's, storyline and their, dynamic. You've built this up so much. There's so much build up to Luffy and Big Mom. It's just wait, so she's just not part of Luffy's story, and like this entire character of Big Mom was kind of built up to go at it with Luffy, basically. Yamil Diaz says, if Luffy doesn't take Otama with him out of Wano, would he ask Shinobu to age her up? I think that Otama being aged up is like a weird concept to me, just because I'm not going to say it won't happen, just because I even put out a video the same video that I talked about how Momonosuke will be aged up in Wano. I put this out at the beginning of Wano. I talked about how Momonosuke is likely going to be aged up over the course of Wano. I also talked about how Tama would likely be aged up. I don't think that doesn't necessarily mean, and like the Momonosuke thing came true, right? And Tama has had a similar sentiment of wanting to be an adult, to be a kunoichi, etc. I don't think Tama aging up, I think Oda might make it kind of weird, because you know that Oda likes to sexualize characters, you know how he's done with Nami as a ninja or whatever. I think we might be in a space where things could be kind of weird if he does decide to age up Tama. You know what I mean? Like, I still think it's going to happen, weirdly enough, but I'm worried about how Oda will do it, how he'll play it. Ninebot says, basically every crew that doesn't have someone that can read the poneglyphs is obsolete. They will never get Rafto. Straw Hats have a huge advantage. Yeah, but they do want to get someone that can read the poneglyphs, right? They're all pushing for that. So, if we go down the list, Big Mom has Pudding. She's got her eggs in that basket, but she also wants to get Robin, right? But she knows Robin's valuable, but she wants to get Pudding. She has Pudding, wants to get Robin as the bonus, but she's got Pudding, right? Kaido, for a long time, he wanted Momonosuke. I forget if it's established, I don't know 100%, but it's possible Kaido thought that Momonosuke could read the poneglyphs. I don't know if that's an assumption or if that's something that actually happened in the story. I forget. I don't know if it was established, but Kaido's like there, right? Like, he's in Wano, he's in the most important lore-based region. He just doesn't have that final piece of someone who can read the poneglyphs. So in a sense, yeah, the Straw Hats have the advantage in that they have someone who can read the poneglyphs, whereas nobody else does. But at the same time, Kaido has like his advantage in that he's in Wano, which seems to have the most important lore. Like, so Straw Hats have like the key to the lock, but Kaido's the one that's guarding the safe. Does that make sense? So you can say who has the advantage there, really, right? Blackbeard, I believe Blackbeard has someone that can read the poneglyphs. Simply because Blackbeard, it's been mentioned that one of his hobbies is studying history. He already seems to know more than the average person. Whether or not he can read the poneglyphs or not, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if we even get some random reveal like, you know what, like, Burgess is part of the Three-Eyed Tribe, he takes off his headband or something like that. Maybe that's kind of like a random out of left field theory or something, but I'm just throwing out an example. I'm just saying that I wouldn't be surprised if Blackbeard has some method or already knows some things. You know what I mean? Shanks, I think, Shanks is just Shanks. He doesn't even give it, he knows he's not the man who's supposed to find the One Piece. Listerine Mouthwash says, would you sleep with a guy if he was pretty enough? No, that's not me. I think we might be caught up on Super Chat. No. L'Assassin Silencio says, what is Puffy... I'm going to assume this says Luffy. What does Luffy prove to Kaido indirectly that he is Joy Boy? What? I'm going to translate this for you. What if Luffy proves to Kaido indirectly that he is Joy Boy, and Kaido returns to his old self and lets King join the Straw Hats for future protection after defeat? I don't think King's joining the Straw Hats. I just don't think he is. I don't think King's joining the Straw Hats. I don't think that's happening. Andrew Connor says, when the raid fails, how will this parley into the next arc, which is likely Elbaf? No, I still think that the raid failing, like, if the raid fails, we still get the second half of Wano, in my opinion, where they get their resurgence and win. So it doesn't actually change things too much heading into the next arc of Wano. I just think that they need a little extra time, basically, to get there. And I think that Elbaf would likely simply be the last location of the final road poneglyph. That's like a good way to make it their last goal. Alright, I'm going to call the stream in 5 minutes, so no more super chats. Please, no more super chats. I'm just going to call the stream in 5 minutes. Conquest says, Yo Morge, thoughts on the newest Black Clover chapter? So, I said this before. People were complaining about the Spade Kingdom arc, even though it had, in my opinion, a lot of the elements that I think are actually good. Like, it's got a lot of the foundation, it's doing a lot of the good character stuff. A lot of people were just complaining about the lack of threat level, right? Lack of threat level, things aren't really going wrong. But we've seen Tabata do this before. Like, it's the elf arc all over again. Like, he's done this so many times. The Water Temple arc, the elf arc, he likes setting things up to feel like they're not that, like, they're kind of checking off all the boxes, they're close to done. And then he hits you with, like, a lot of, like, a sharp increase in threat, right? A sharp increase in threat, and things go from there. So, I was kind of just a little annoyed because, like, he's not going to set up all of this devil stuff. Like, people legitimately thought that the arc was just going to end with the previous chapter. They're like, yeah, so we fought the Dark Triad and we fought a couple of the devils, and that's that's disappointing. That's the way the arc's end. I'm like, but that's clearly, why would you? We're clearly just getting started. I was kind of shocked that so many people were just like, yeah, the Spade Kingdom arc sucks because we're basically just wrapping up. I'm like, am I insane? Like, it's obviously not wrapping up. It felt like a bit of raid fail scenario again. I'm like, wait a second. Am I again thinking that, like, things are just going to ramp up in stakes even though nobody else thinks that they're going to ramp up in stakes? I was honestly lost. So that made me think, I was like, wait, am I just, like, insane? Because I'm looking at this other series. I'm like, obviously we're going to have a twist where the stakes increase because that's just how the author does it. I also say this about One Piece. But, like, nobody in either side seems to believe that. I'm happy to see that at least in Black Clover, things got kind of crazy with the most recent chapter. I'm going to stop talking about Black Clover as my viewers dip. Although I'm wrapping up the stream anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Pat Galley. Okay, I'm not going to... No more super chats. Also, your super chat is funny. So I'll say it. Porn went up and smoking a fatty from Warch tonight. Thanks, man. But no more super chats for real. Next one will not be answered. Big Mom is literally grandma now? Yeah, maybe. Oh, missing super chat from Andrew. Hey, Morge. Thanks, Phantom. Love the videos and wanted to show support. Thanks, man. I also think Momo will join the Strats, and Yamato and H-Tama will be retainers for Momo. Retainers for Momo. I just don't know if they're going to have, like, extra characters like that sailing around with Straw Hats, you know? I think Momo joins, but I just don't know about Tama. I mean, Tama and Yamato. Also, there's been, like, that thing, like, it fell off, but it was just an interesting thought for a while. I like the idea that, like, you know, Yamato, Otama, those names are somewhat similar for some reason. Just a coincidence, I guess it turned out to be. But it's interesting. Now we're caught up, finally. Yes, thank you, Phantom. Yeah, I'll call it in 2 minutes, I guess. Troy Oliver says, that's messed up for late people that didn't hear you say that. Look, I have to say that thing just to, like, create a cutoff, okay? In history, I think I've literally never not answered one of those final super chats. Unless, deliberately, I know I've not answered a super chat on mistake here or there, but, like, I've never deliberately not answered a final super chat. It's just that I say that at the end to finally cut the flow, to finally stop the flow. I have to say that. Although, me explaining that mentality to you guys basically ruins the point of me saying it. So, yeah. The party says, hey, Morge, on vacation to Mr. Stream. Is Mango really the GOAT now in Melee? Yeah, I kind of changed my mind. I made a strong argument for Armada before, but I've got Mango now because I count this as Mango being a year-end number one again. So, and being number one matters a lot. So, yeah, Mango basically ended this year. It's unfair that there's not rankings because it just doesn't make sense because we've ranked years where there were less tournaments than this. We've ranked like 2010, 2009, 2011, 2012. There were less tournaments, less majors, super majors and stuff those years than this year. So I don't know why we're not doing rankings for this year. It's just arbitrarily unfair. But I'm going by, like, in my mind, the logical route, which is that you have to rank. Like, there's no reason not to rank this year, but then rank for those years. So logically speaking, Mango would be number one for this year. Pretty much everyone seems to rank him at number one this year. Like, other players all have him ranked number one. IBDW just ranked him number one. Zane has him number one. Everyone has him number one. So Mango's logically number one for this year. That means a lot. Even if there are less tournaments, that doesn't matter, in my opinion, because, we would rank for years where there are less tournaments. You rank based on relative to the amount of competition that there was for that year. So, yeah, another year at number one is really big because it gives him the record pretty conclusively. And in my mind, there's a huge shift for me personally when I'm comparing players in any sport, any whatever. Comparing basically the idea that, like, okay, Mango's been at the top for a long time. To me, that's very, very different than actually sealing number one, for another year. Because there's a difference, because if you're number one, that means that you were the best player of the year. So being like solidified as the best in this era, and this era, to me that totally shifts his argument. Because up till now his argument was purely longevity. Like, I've been around, I've been at the top for a long time. Like, I wasn't like the best in all eras, but I've been competitive in all eras. To me, that's nowhere near as strong as saying like, okay, he was actually the best in this era, and this era. And this era is like the most high level, most competitive era. Just look at what happened to Mewtwo King like last weekend when he tried to compete. J-Full, so I have to acknowledge this one. I'll end it on one more question, basically. Thanks, J-Full. Love you too. I guess. I shouldn't say that. That's parasocial. I take that back. I do not love you, but thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, I said some stuff about Melee. I'll answer one last One Piece question. Let me see. Senpai Yo says, do you follow Ultimate as well or just Melee? I follow Ultimate. Like, I know MKLeo won the last one. I follow, like, if there's a Melee tournament and an Ultimate tournament, I'll probably stick around and watch the Ultimate bits of it, but I'm not as invested. But I like Ultimate quite a bit. I'm just like Melee a lot better, you know what I mean? But I like Ultimate as a game quite a bit as well, and I also am somewhat invested in the scene. And, yeah, I think in some ways, if I was being objective, I think the Ultimate scene like has more interesting storylines going right now than the Melee scene, arguably. I think there's an argument for both. I just like Melee a lot better. Evil says, more just really cool how you're into Melee. Big fan that still has a disc in CRT. Oh, Evil, are you a Melee fan? Are you a Melee fan? That's awesome. Don't run into a lot of those. There's a good section of the One Piece YouTube community that plays like Smash Ultimate a lot, but like most other people don't play Melee. Virgil Hawkins is Morge. Who's your Ultimate main? It's Byron Mithra. I don't play Ultimate much. I'm not like an Ultimate player, but like when I do play, maybe because they're so easy to like, it's so easy to like play neutral well with Mithra, right? And it's not that hard to get kills with Pyra. So like because I don't play the game much, I don't really bother to like really learn a character. I just play Pyra Mithra because it's so easy. Like the character is just really, 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 really good. It's not really bad at anything, I guess, recovery, but like in terms of what you need to do, which is win neutral and get kills, it's just really, really, really good. I guess that was one of my things with Ultimate, since we're talking a little bit about Smash. One of my things with Smash Ultimate, so like when I play Melee, I'm like a Melee player mainly, right? I like that it's less balanced, obviously, but it's more balanced at the top. Like, you've got a small roster of characters at the top that all can reasonably beat the other characters at the top, for the most part. I really like that, like, when I play a character like Fox, right, I feel like I can do anything. He's got a million options, extremely fast, you can press a lot of buttons, you can do pretty much anything. You can move anywhere, you can connect anything, you can do so much stuff. You can do offense, defense, recovery, blah, blah, blah. And it makes the game, like, feel very, very dynamic. You feel like you can do so much stuff. And you're up against other characters, like, that, like a Falco or whatever, that can also do like so much stuff. Ultimate is more balanced, but it feels like, for me, it feels a little more, when I pick up an Ultimate character, it feels clear to me where they decided to nerf the character, if that makes sense. Like, balance is good, 100%. Not trying to knock Ultimate for balance. I'm just saying, for me, the fun of it, when I picked up Ultimate characters, I'd be like, okay, so this character is clearly, like, I liked Inkling a lot. Inkling was kind of my main before Pyra Mithra. Inkling, clearly, they were like, okay, has amazing movement, has amazing neutral, but we're going to make it weak in terms of its ability to kill, very weak in terms of its ability to kill, and like they just hit it in lots of different areas, right? There's a lot of Ultimate characters you can feel limited, I guess, across the board, because it's very clear where they're like, it's good in these areas, bad in these areas, right? So for me, who's like used to playing Melee, where I can play Fox and feel like I can do anything. Even if I play Marth, it's like, okay, I can do so much. I can combo in so many ways. I can play neutral in so many ways. Obviously at like the casual level, right? But yeah, then Pyra Mithra came out, and then suddenly it felt like, holy shit, I got a character where I feel like I can do like I can play neutral, I can do whatever I want, I can kill no problem or whatever. Like, I guess I'm happy the character is broken, right? Happy the character is broken, but more so in a sense that like I don't feel limited in any way, right? I'd be happy to play Paramithra Dittos all the time. I don't care if the opponent has a broken character. I just want to feel like I can move a lot in the game while not having to sacrifice like a bunch of other things at the same time. You know what I mean? All right. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, but like that's I know I picked the broken characters. That's basically it. But it's because I like feeling like I can do a lot in the game. RIP my super chat. Oh, Prappy11, King Desi Landa hai. King Desi Landa hai. Maybe my pronunciation's wrong. What's Landa? Lakta hai? Lakta hai makes more sense. King Desi Lakta hai. That would make more sense. I don't know what Landa hai. Alright, I'll take one more question, basically. Let me find one more question. Morja Nooblol, says Jose Larios. I think I'm a noob in Ultimate. I was good at Melee at the start of this year, then I had to take a long break, so now I'm terrible at Melee again. I actually picked it up for the first time in like 6-7 months yesterday. Yesterday was, because like winter break's kind of starting. I played for the first time in like 6-7 months. I was so bad. Everything felt so fast. Like the players I was playing against felt so fast. So like, but I was legitimately, I won't say great, but I felt pretty good, pretty competent in Melee. Londa slang Morge. Thanks, Phantom. Luanda? Yeah, sorry. Not up to date with the Hindi slang. Yeah, like in Melee, I think that basically me at the start of the year, I was a lot better because I was just playing it way more. I was playing like several months. And then like I realized I needed to take a break to work more. And then I just took a long ass break, and then I got back into it recently. Jordan Taylor says you get a double dash. Okay, let me let you guys in on something. Really fun. Fun idea. This is highly recommend this for any group of friends, especially like if you're in college or whatever and you got nothing to do some night. All right, this is great. So in college, me and my 4 roommates in my apartment, we would do this thing called the Olympics. If we had nothing to do on a given night, we're just chilling at the apartment, we would do this thing called the Olympics, all right? We would play, heavy drinking involved, right? And we would split into 2 teams of 2. And we had 3 events, all right? Best out of 3, all right? So first we'd play Pong, then we would play Double Dash, and then we would play Melee. That's where like a lot of my love for Melee came. Then after college, I got competitive into it, basically. But yeah, we would just do that. We'd play Pong, we'd play Double Dash, we'd play Melee. And Olympics nights were just fun. They were just fun nights. I highly recommend, like, don't necessarily do that, but like, pick your favorite 3, 4, 5 games. Either do a best of 3 or best of 5. If you got nothing to do a certain night or something like that, just drink and turn it into an Olympics and then compete in that. So Double Dash was one of my favorite games. It was like a game that like we all got really fun, like really good at, basically. Virgil Hawkins says, One Piece YouTuber Ultimate Tournament. I would lose really hard. I don't play that game much at all. I literally don't. On my Switch, I have only the starter characters, and the Fighter Pass characters. Because when I bought the game, I just bought the game and I bought the 2 Fighter Passes. I bought the game like a month ago. I bought the game and I bought the 2 Fighter Passes. And I was like, okay, I just get the starter characters and the 2 Fighter Pass characters. So it's like the weirdest roster ever. It's like missing like 80% of the characters. So it has only the first characters and only the newest characters and nothing in between. And then I just played Pyra Mithra. So I was like, okay, that's solid. Up till then, I didn't even have Ultimate. I just would play at friends' houses and stuff like that. So before I kind of played Inkling because I liked Inkling. Then I was like, then I bought the game. And I was like, oh, I have access to Pyra Mithra. Let me play that. I was like, okay, this is just better. I'll just play this. Power Rangers, thanks. I know that you played Luffy in the live action. No, that wasn't me. Mario Kart Wii is the yeah, look, I know the newest Mario Kart is the best one. I enjoy it. I'm drinking a loose cannon hazard. I enjoy the new Mario Kart for sure. I really like it. It's just Double Dash was like well, no, I think driving was actually a little harder. But Double Dash was like the game that we played the most, and it's kind of the game that like I got the best at. So like Double Dash, it's so different because like Double Dash, I know like every nook and cranny pretty much. I was the worst out of our group at Double Dash, but I was the best at Melee, so it balanced out basically. But Double Dash, I still knew every nook and cranny because our group was really good at that game. So I have like a high, like it's just different. Like when you're playing a game where like you're actually really good at it, so like every little detail like matter, like you feel more immersed into it, I guess, to a degree. But then with the new Mario Kart that I play on the Switch, that's just fun because it feels new every track. I don't play that game a lot, so like every time I play that game, like it feels new every track. There's so much variety, so much random stuff. So like, and it's a lot more forgiving in many ways, but like also a lot more items. So, it goes back and forth. Evil, what do you mean? Who's your main? Golden Row. I don't know if you saw, but they're actually making a rollback for Brawl, and they're making a rollback for what do you call it? For Ultimate. FPS Kings Gaming says, thought you already ended stream. Yeah, I guess I accidentally just kept going because we were talking about fun stuff. All right. I'm going to call... Oh, Bobo Yogo just asked, Morge, have you ever been to London? Yes, when I was young. I kind of liked it. I bugged my family the entire time for fish and chips. I wanted to eat fish and chips in London. Because I was a kid, I knew that fish and chips was like a part of London food. We somehow went like 3 days. And during that entire period of time, we never stopped somewhere to eat fish and chips. It made me really upset. That's my memory of London. I was like, I only wanted one thing. I just wanted fish and chips. Light Yagami says, Double Dash unique items are my favorite. Yep, 100% agree. Phantom Greyfire says, more 150k celebration stream when? Oh, shoot. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Maybe I'll do that next week or something like that. Whenever it's hit. I guess the stream after it's hit. Big one will be 200k. That'll be fun. All right. I think we're good for the day. That's enough. Went a little longer than I wanted to, actually, so it's always a good thing, I guess. And yeah, I will talk to you all. I will talk